Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1367 of the War News stream. And we have very big news yet again today. We've seen Ukraine launch new major strikes on Russia and Crimea. We've also seen that U.S. forces have closed the airspace over Venezuela, which is very, very peculiar. And also, France is warning allies to prepare for a major war coming soon. And we have big news from around the world, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world, as we have been able to hear significant developments from Europe and the Americas over the course of the day that is once again leading us to see that the world is condemning the 28-point peace plan. But in the meantime, we have been able to see the Ukrainian armed forces conducted significant strikes against the Russian Federation and their critical infrastructure within the Crimean Peninsula and also the Russian Federation's mainland overnight. While at the same time this is going on, the major decision and major choices are having to be made about what the future is going to hold for the state of Ukraine as far as foreign support and foreign alliances are concerned, as news has emerged overnight that the United States of America has given Ukraine an ultimatum. Either they accept the 28-point plan, the 28-point peace plan, or the United States completely withdraws all military and intelligence support to the state of Ukraine effective immediately if they say no. This has led to the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, coming out today and stating that the Ukrainian nation has two options: either to accept a surrender that leaves their nation without any dignity or without any further protections in the future, or to lose a major strategic ally in the United States of America. Meanwhile, literally everyone on the planet has condemned the 28-point peace plan, except for the people who are directly connected to the President of the United States and the direct agencies that are involved in the executive branch, as multiple members of the Congress on both sides of the political aisle, and practically every single national leader within Europe and around the rest of the world has completely condemned and disavowed the peace plan, stating that the 28-point peace plan is not a peace plan, it is an unconditional surrender for the state of Ukraine, and is not only doing that alone, but it is showing a great deal of weakness on the side of the United States of America and the whole of the Western sphere, which will only embolden the Russians to push farther once they achieve achieve this peace treaty at some point in the future if it ever was achieved. Outside of that, the United States of America has also issued a NOTAM today within the area of Venezuela, as we have seen that the U.S. actions within the area are still ramping up more and more, with 20% of the U.S. Navy that is currently at sea within the area of the Eastern Caribbean, and we've also seen that Nicolas Maduro's air forces within Venezuela have been airborne today and have been conducting some air operations. In the meantime, we also saw that a United States vessel, an Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer, actually turned away a Russian tanker that was attempting to enter a Venezuelan port, and this is the third case in which this tanker has been denied entry into Venezuelan waters by the United States of America. In the meantime, the Ukrainian armed forces have been significantly holding their ground today, inflicting high casualties onto the Russian Federation's armed forces in Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, along multiple other areas of the front, and also continuing to ensure that the state of Ukraine will survive to fight another day in this war like they have been doing for 1,367 days up until this point. We've also gotten additional news that India crashed one of their own fighter jets at a Dubai air show today, once again reiterating the concept that they just don't know how in the world to run an air force or fly a plane in India. And also we saw that the Israelis are now conducting large-scale military operations within the West Bank. We have a huge amount of news to cover over the course of the day, and these are just some of the biggest pieces of news that we have. We are going to be making sure to go through each and every single piece of news that we have, starting with our largest stories of the night and then working our way on down into the smaller stories as we make it through the night's coverage. And so, of course, folks, we are going to be getting on into our first and most major piece of news, which is going to be the Ukrainian attacks on the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians have conducted another significant drone attack overnight and have been keeping up, mind you all, to the promise of daily attacks on the Russian Federation with long-range drone forces, as another drone attack has targeted the area around Volgograd, Rostov-on-Don, and the Krasnodar Krai Oblast overnight. These attacks have not seen their damage reports come out yet. We were able to confirm at least one impact at the moment within the area of Slovyansk na Kubani, which it appears that a drone hit a brick factory within the area, causing serious damage and scattering debris around the streets near to the area of the brick factory. We are unsure as to why the Ukrainians hit the Russian brick factory, but we believe that they hit it so that way the Russians could no longer say that they were bricked up. Nevertheless, the drone attack is still ongoing, or at least the damage reports coming in are still ongoing at this moment, and we are trying to get as much possible information that we can about what this drone strike has entailed and what kind of damage it's causing within the southeastern region of the Russian, within the Don Plains, just south of Volgograd. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces have also conducted another significant attack on the Crimean Peninsula, once again striking significant Russian military targets and critical infrastructure vital to the ongoing war effort for the Russian Federation. Video footage has finally emerged of explosions at the Saki Air Base, which lets us know now, with video and picture evidence, that the eyewitness reports from last night of the Russian Federation's Saki Air Base being hit quite heavily in Crimea were in fact accurate. And here's the clip.
Oh, that sounds like a rocket right there.
That sounds like one for sure.
A real sucky night in Saki.
Man, I gotta tell you, man, they really get into that whole sake around there. I heard that they actually are so good at the whole sake side of things in that town that some people actually say that they're so good at it that they could blow Bubba. But moving on down into Simferopol in the middle of Crimea, we've also been able to see that the city of Simferopol also came under attack last night as well, with Russian local air defense firing up into the skies over the city, attempting to shoot down the Ukrainian drones, although it doesn't appear they shot any of them down, as the air defense was, of course, firing blindly into the air. And there goes the blind firing.
Look at that. All that has to come back down too, by the way. The Russians always forget about that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I think the lawnmower had a sudden impact.
So, to tell y'all what that hit, that was actually one of the major electrical substations within the city of Simferopol, and what we've heard now is that a decent amount of the city is in the midst of a blackout. I would have to say Russian air defense is really doing something here. It's not good, whatever this is, because, I mean, look at the spray. Let's just cut out the audio. And look at how wildly this guy is firing. He's firing literally everywhere in the air. There's not a single area that a tracer is not flying through at that point. It's insane that they think they'll ever be able to shoot anything down with that kind of accuracy, and they didn't. And apparently he didn't even know where the drone was, because he was still firing well up into the air right here when the drone was down here slamming into the substation. So apparently the Russian air defense is still as clueless as they were on day one of the war. But
yeah, it doesn't look like they don't have spotlights there at this facility either. Like at some of the oil facilities, they'll have like spotlights that look like a bat signal going up in the sky. But this facility right here apparently doesn't have any type of visual way to sight these drones coming in. So that must be why they're firing randomly. They're simply listening for the sound and they're firing in the direction of the noise.
Man, they're going, "Ooh, it's a lawnmower." Do not mow your lawn at night in Russia, by the way. The sound will trigger the Russian air defense guys, and they'll just start firing light machine guns into your front yard trying to shoot you because they can hear your lawnmower. So moving on out of Simferopol, because the other clip is a duplicate, just to make sure that we had another one, just in case the first one didn't work, and moving all the way up and into the area of the town of Syzran, which is just a couple of dozen miles west of the major city of Samara, which houses two oil refineries, the Novokubashevsk refinery and the Samara oil refinery just south of the city. We also saw that another refinery at the city of Syzran was also hit last night by Ukrainian drones, with the refinery taking significant damage in the process. Here's that clip.
This was a quiet night.
Silent night, holy night.
It turned real holy because the plant got holes in it, but oh.
Well,
Sounds like the property values are going through the floor. I'm not sure if they could have gone any lower than they were, but anything's possible.
man, this sounds like Detroit, Michigan. Like, honestly, this sounds like Chicago or Detroit, I gotta tell you. But once again, the Ukrainians did knock out another Russian oil refinery and did cause more significant damage to Russia's economic cash cow, practically the only one inside of the country. In the midst of this attack that was going on, that the state of Ukraine successfully conducted overnight against the Russian Federation's forces and logistics within the area of the Russian Federation in Crimea, we have been able to hear of the ongoing ultimatum that has been given by the United States of America to the state of Ukraine. And this is one of the most significant developments in news over the course of the day. We have been able to confirm for many people who were trying to refute this yesterday that the 28-point peace plan that was presented and read off on air last night is the peace plan as it exists right now. And while a lot of people right now in the current administration are trying to run interference and saying that it's just a rough draft and it's not really the plan, it doesn't appear that that's what they're working off of, at least with what they're saying to Ukraine. They've made it incredibly clear to the state of Ukraine that they either accept the demands that are in the 28-point peace plan right now, or the United States of America is going to withdraw all material and intelligence support to the state of Ukraine, effective immediately if they do not accept this. So while some people, and I got to make this a little bit clear, folks, I'm not trying to be political here, but at the same time, this is something that is so dastardly, it honestly makes me a little bit embarrassed to be proud of the United States of America, and it's a stain on the United States of America as a grand republic with an amazing history of 250 years of success and trials and tribulations. To go through something like this is quite embarrassing, to be entirely honest, and to have to cover it on air. But outside of that, the United States, while running interference in the administration to get people confused in the public and to buy them some benefit of the doubt from some people who don't want to believe this, are saying that the draft isn't finalized, they're still telling the Ukrainians that this is practically the final draft and they're either going to accept it or the United States is going to completely withdraw support for the state of Ukraine. In the meantime, the president also made additional comments about this upcoming peace deal that's been given to the Ukrainians, and according to a statement made by the president of the United States, this is as follows today. A reporter asked, about this Ukraine plan, President Zelensky said today that his country would risk either giving up a partner or giving up its dignity. The president said, you mean he doesn't like it? The reporter said, it's unclear. He was sort of tenuous about it. The president said, he'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then they should keep fighting, I guess. The reporter then stated the suggestion that he made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. will pull back its support for Ukraine. Is that accurate? The president then responded, well, at some point, he's going to have to accept something. You remember, right, in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. basically saying that
That's so silly though. Like back when the last Oval Office meeting happened, and the U.S. president told Zelensky that he doesn't have the cards, that was a whole different situation then, because now Ukraine has flamingos, and they've been ramping up their domestic missile production. That was not the case the last time Zelensky was in the United States. So that's a huge change. And there's been a lot of other things that have changed too. Like for example, Europe has ramped up their support, and we've seen a lot of other things as well. And also the talk of the frozen Russian assets getting liquidated and then given to Ukraine as well. So to say Ukraine doesn't have cards is out of touch with reality, to say the least, because they've become more self-sufficient, almost twofold or threefold, ever since the last time Zelensky showed up.
Yeah, I would have to definitely agree. Also, an additional development, at least at the moment, and let me make sure that I get through this to make sure that we cover all of this properly. Oh yeah, also the president did state that at least for now, I want to make this clear, this isn't indefinite, it's just for now, that he's not going to be lifting sanctions on Russian oil yet. That might be coming here in the future, we don't know. The statement was made more so about the immediate picture of today and about the next week, not really into the long term, so it's possible that the sanctions on Russian oil could be lifted at some point in the future unilaterally by the United States. So, many people are saying that this peace plan is absolutely garbage. And some other people, a very small group of people, are saying that this is the greatest peace plan that's ever existed, and it just makes a great deal of sense that the war has to end, even if it doesn't really have to end, because it's going to be ending, putting us at a massive disadvantage, and putting all of our allies at a massive disadvantage, and putting the Ukrainians at a massive disadvantage that they don't have to be in. We still have to end it just because, and therefore it is a great and absolutely incredible plan. So, I'm going to take a moment today. We rarely have ever done this. As a matter of fact, I think this is the first time we've ever done this on the channel, but we're going to take a brief moment here on air to read out every single statement of disapproval or disavowalment that has been made about the peace plan by any representative or senator from the U.S. Congress, any retired U.S. general, any retired Secretary of State, and also every foreign leader in Europe that has come out today and has publicly stated that they do not agree with this peace plan and that it's actually a very raw deal, not just for Ukraine, not just for Europe, but for the United States as well. So let us start off by reading a couple of them. We're going to start off with a senator of the United States of America. This is Senator Mark Warner, who is a U.S. senator from Virginia. He stated simply, backing our partner Ukraine into a corner in favor of the endlessly corrupt and authoritarian Putin is not only weak, it is dangerous for American security. We also saw an additional statement from the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who stated Putin has spent the entire year trying to play the president for a fool. If administration officials are more concerned with appeasing Putin than securing real peace, then the president ought to find new advisors. Rewarding Russian butchery would be disastrous to America's interest. And also, and a capitulation like the former president's abandonment of Afghanistan would be catastrophic to a legacy of peace through strength. An additional
That's a wild one right there. For coming from Mitch McConnell, that's a wild one. That's a pretty strong condemnation, actually. That shows a lot of people are probably behind him.
And it practically shows no one in the Congress is behind this peace plan at the moment. And we also saw Representative Don Bacon, a retired U.S. general, also state, just an ugly perspective. We are not being the world's power for freedom and rule of law. This agreement will go down as a terrible day in U.S. history. The vast majority of Americans will reject surrender to Putin, which I believe many have. We also have heard from an additional statement, another senator, Senator Roger Wicker of the state of Mississippi, has stated the so-called peace plan has real problems, and I am highly skeptical it will achieve peace. Ukraine should not be forced to give up its land to one of the world's most flagrant war criminals in Vladimir Putin. The size and disposition of Ukraine's armed forces is a sovereign choice for its government and people. Any assurances provided to Putin should not reward his malign behavior and undermine the security of the United States or our allies. In particular, any suggestion that we can pursue arms control with a serial liar and killer like Putin should be treated with great skepticism. We've also got an additional statement from a former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo stated Putin cannot be rewarded for slaughtering thousands of people and kidnapping 20,000 Ukrainian children. Now is the time to increase the pressure, not take our foot off of the gas. An additional statement was also made by the President of the United States on a side note today that after we stated yesterday that declaring everyone in Venezuela and the government a terrorist force is going to open up a lot of options for the U.S. military, the President of the United States is also now stating that he'll be speaking to Maduro again. But we'll get to that later in the night. We have an entire news segment on the hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow as usual. But those are just the small pile of statements that I wanted to put on air tonight from basically every single corner of the U.S. government, except for the executive, that is condemning the peace deal. Majority leaders of the current ruling party, minority leaders of the other minority party at the moment within the government, practically everyone in the United States of America is against the plan. Practically every single representative and senator in Congress does not seem to be for this plan. There's a small minority that are, and not only that, this has received national condemnation by most citizens of the United States of America by saying that the plan is absolutely a raw deal. And that doesn't even end there. Moving on into Europe, considering that the Europeans are also a major part of bringing an eventual peace into Ukraine and also seeing that that peace secures their security interests, not just ours and Ukraine's, or anyone's for that matter, we've also seen other words of disavowalment and condemnation within the areas of Europe as well. The president of Latvia disavowed the peace plan today and stated that Ukraine and Europe deserve just and lasting peace. Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and existential security interests are key to achieve this goal. Path to peace is often complex. All partners and friends of Ukraine must work together for the best possible outcome, largely a disavowal of the current proposed 28-point peace plan by the United States. The president of Romania has also disavowed the peace plan as well, and has stated, "I'm monitoring with great attention the most recent developments concerning the Russian Federation's war against Ukraine. I welcome first and foremost the U.S. president's renewed efforts to advance towards a sustainable ceasefire and toward the formula of a negotiated and sustainable peace. It is also a good opportunity to reaffirm that the security of Romania and of all Europe depends on the conditions of the future peace in Ukraine and on the subsequent agreements. I join the message of other European leaders who've assured Ukraine today of their continued support. Supporting Ukraine's sovereignty alongside the United States of America seems equally important to me as well. We are living through an important moment that demands from all of us maturity, vision, and courage. The circumstances demonstrate more than ever the importance of an intense and honest transatlantic dialogue in the spirit of solidarity among allies and of complementarity of interest between the European Union and NATO. Last but not least, it is important for me to reaffirm that we are also evaluating the current dynamics from the perspective of the security, stability, and prosperity of the interest of the Republic of Moldova, which are of utmost importance to Romania." An additional statement was also made by Jan Lipavsky, the foreign minister of the Czech Republic, and Peter Pavel, the president of the Czech Republic as well, and we'll be reading off Jan Lipavsky's statement on air. Peace in Ukraine cannot be negotiated without Ukraine. In the Czech Republic, we know all too well what about us without us leads to. The Munich Agreement sacrificed someone else's territory and not only failed to prevent war, it paved the way for it. I have always warned against a Munich 2.0, and I always will. The president of the Polish Republic also had this statement to make today as well. All the decisions concerning Poland will be taken by Poles. Nothing about us without us. When it comes to peace, all the negotiations should include Ukraine. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. We've also heard additional statements from multiple other governments throughout the entirety of Europe today, including that of the German, French, and British governments, which have all disavowed the peace plan through their own words and means, and are now working on a counter-proposal to the United States-backed 28-point peace plan for Ukraine that the Europeans will present to the United States and Ukraine simultaneously at some point in the future. This is all giving us an idea at the moment that a large amount of countries and a large amount of people in the United States of America are not at all for this peace plan. As a matter of fact, it basically seems like no one's for the peace plan. We've also heard the additional statements by the Europeans that if the United States backs off, the Ukrainians can count on the Europeans to pull the rest of the weight on through. According to Friedrich Merz, who is currently the Chancellor of Germany, he has stated that Ukraine can count on us, together with Emmanuel Macron, the leader of the French Republic, and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I have reaffirmed our full support to the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. We will coordinate closely with Europe and the United States, whose commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty we welcome. The contact line must remain the basis for any talks. We've also heard additional developments today out of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland that it also appears that even some people within the modern political world that would seem quite controversial, like, for example, Nigel Farage, who is currently a member of the British Parliament, has stated that Ukraine being asked to half the size of its army is unacceptable. I'm waiting to see a counter-proposal from the Ukrainian government. So it does become quite obvious that literally nobody in the world is finding this to be a great peace deal. Still, even more so, multiple officials today throughout the entirety of Europe, in Sweden and France, have also even further expounded on how close close war really is at the moment, and why these sorts of cheap peace deals would not be beneficial sort of an outcome for Europe, Ukraine, or the United States. But before we get into that, I do want to make sure that we talk about y'all's opinions on what is going on right now with a 28-point peace plan, considering that practically everyone on the planet is currently openly against the peace plan. The only people who are for it are the Russians, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so we are seeing, as you saw right there, the U.S. is continuing to pressure Ukraine to capitulate as many condemn the peace plan, more known as a surrender plan, actually. So what are your thoughts? 52% said the U.S. will back off the plan, while 24% said the U.S. will double down on it, and 16% said it's a 50-50 chance of either. So right now, the U.S. appears to be going headfirst into this idea of forcing Ukraine to capitulate, which is, of course, a terrible idea. But the good news is, though, like we just read off, basically everybody's against the plan. The Democrats, the Republicans in the United States don't like the plan, which is shocking to see actual agreement between those two groups. We're also seeing that Europe is completely united against the plan. The only people that support the plan are the Russians and Vladimir Putin, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know about what the plan really means. It's a Russian plan that the U.S. is trying to push through. So it's just a sick situation. Honestly, I would be kind of shocked if the U.S. didn't back off the plan at least somewhat, because why would the U.S. continue to push something that's not being supported by anybody unless there's some ulterior motive behind it, which at this point I'm beginning to wonder if there actually is an ulterior motive, because it's very odd that the U.S. is pushing this against so much condemnation. So I'm actually with the 52%. I think the U.S. will try to back off or at least pivot, because remember the last time we went through this, folks. We went through this about 6 months ago, where people were saying, oh, look, the U.S. president, this is when Zelensky was brought into the White House, by the way. The U.S. president gave him a dressing down and embarrassed the hell out of everybody in the Oval Office with Zelensky in there. And it looked like Ukraine was going to get abandoned. But then shortly after that, the U.S. turned around and actually supported Ukraine bigger and better than ever. And it could happen this way this time as well, because I don't know why the U.S. would keep pushing it if everybody's against it. So that's my current assumption right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I would have to be within the unsure and undecided, to be entirely honest, in the 8%. I have absolutely no clue. I'll be entirely honest with you all as far as foreign policy is concerned, and I do not mean to make this a political statement, but at this point, this is my honest assessment. I have absolutely no faith in the current administration in conducting any honest and upright actions in foreign policy. It's been that way pretty much over the whole of the year. We've given the benefit of the doubt for about 9 months, and at this point, seeing that we've come full circle back around to doing something like this against the state of Ukraine, and also making it an even larger and more threatening ultimatum that they have to accept practical unconditional surrender for us to claim that we ended another war for no one's benefit, is leading me to have very, very low ideas or really opinions on the current administration and its ability to conduct effective foreign policy. For that matter, I'd have to be undecided. They might try and double down on this even farther, whether or not people are supporting this anywhere in the world at all, even within the United States and the Congress. They may back off of it because they see that it has absolutely no support coming from any part of the U.S. government. But at the same time, it's incredibly unclear how this is going to go. And I don't mean to be someone who's going to sit here and be absolutely critical, but at the same time, look at what this is right now and tell me we can't be critical on it. How in the world could we not be? We can't even give this a fair breath. This is so one-sided to the Russians. Literally the only people who made a public statement today about liking the peace plan were the Russians. Everyone else in the world, every nation in Europe, every single representative and senator within the U.S. Congress in the United States today, bar a small number of them, condemned this plan today. Everyone in the Western world has condemned this peace plan as being literal appeasement and practical surrender to the Russians. And to even further that point farther, the Russian Federation is the only country that said the peace deal was good. The only one in the world that's involved in this right now, and they were the only ones to say the American peace plan was decent. If you don't believe me, I'll actually let you see Putin say it right here.
Мы видим, что после переговоров на Аляске с американской стороны наступила определенная пауза. И мы знаем.
I'll actually be reading this aloud because the audio is quite quiet, so let me go ahead and lower the audio of Putin talking, and then I'll read out the subtitles for y'all. We can see that following the talks in Alaska, a certain pause has ensued from the American side, and we know this is connected to Ukraine's de facto refusal of the peace settlement plan proposed by the President of the U.S. I believe this is precisely why a new version has appeared, essentially a modernized plan now comprising 28 points. We have this text. We obtained it through established channels of interaction with the American administration. I believe this version, too, could form the basis for a final peace settlement. He also additionally stated, to paraphrase a little bit as well, that at the same time, Russia quite suits the current dynamics of the ongoing war, which is leading to the achievement of its goals by military means, making it
Oh,
incredibly.
wow. That sounds like peace, doesn't it? It sounds like he really wants peace. Well, what country that really wants peace says that we're perfectly content with destroying and also eliminating civilians if we don't get our way? That doesn't sound like a country that is peace loving. That sounds like a country that's more hell bent on war, if you ask me. But real quick, I will say this though. Like I see the people in the live chat talking about this. It is really remarkable to me, and not trying to get political with us. It's remarkable to me though that both sides of the aisle in the United States are agreeing on something for once. They pretty much don't agree on anything these days, nothing. But notice on this one right here, it's like a miracle that everybody, the Democrats and the Republicans, are saying that this plan is awful, it's terrible, and it's garbage. Which is crazy to hear that. Obviously, Europe's saying it's garbage because they don't want to be left high and dry when the U.S. abandons Ukraine. So it's really wild to see that, and also. Obviously, the only one who's gleeful about it is Putin, because basically the plan is a Russian plan. They even call it Russian phrases in the plan itself, like certain phrases that Russia likes to repeat for propaganda reasons. That wordage was almost verbatim, or at least very close to it, in the plan that was released. It was very, very close, which indicates to me that Russia had probably a very strong drafting ability of the plan itself, or at least influenced it heavily, because it almost matches exactly what they want.
I would have to say it's an absolute embarrassment, and I see many people echoing statements that I've seen today by some who are adamant fans, I would generally say cult worshippers of the current administration, who cannot see any fault that lies in these sorts of plans. And I'll take a minute to explain to y'all the stupidity and the logic of what some people are putting out. The counter to this today that's been put out by the administration and generally those who support the administration's horrendous peace plan is the idea that this war has to end because people are dying. So no matter what, no matter how it ends, it just has to end because people are dying. Now, I would have to say that that is an absolutely stupid sort of a logic, and I've never heard anyone say something like that in my life in any other conflict. You know, we could have ended the Revolutionary War before we won at the Battle of Yorktown in 1783. We could have ended it well before then. That would have been quite easy to do. The founding fathers could have just surrendered to the British, ended the revolution, and they could have all been executed for treason by the crown. And we would still be a British colony to this day, and we would have never become an American state, and we still would have had taxes imposed and levied against our citizenry without any representation within the British Parliament. We could have also seen that in the U.S. Civil War, instead of fighting a war to reunify the Union and to also see the emancipation of all enslaved persons within the United States of America during that time, instead of losing 600,000 men in that war, we could have just surrendered, and we could have allowed for the continued injustice and separation of our Union to continue into an indefinite period in the future. During the First World War, when Americans were killed on Lusitania, we could have said that losing 70 Americans on the Lusitania was far better than losing 100,000 men in Western Europe. Yet nevertheless, we went overseas and we fought the First World War and lost 110,000 men, 50,000 from combat and 55,000 from illness, to fight the Germans and to make sure that we stood for what was right in defending our people, no matter the cost. In the Second World War, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and killed 2,000 Americans, we didn't say that 2,000 Americans is better than losing 550,000 over the course of the next 4 years in the Second World War, fighting the Imperial Japanese, the Fascist Italians, and the Nazi Germans. No, we declared war on the Nazi Germans, and we continued that war no matter how long it took and how many lives were lost, to see an eventual victory to avenge those who died at Pearl Harbor and to also avenge our allies who had been embroiled in combat with the Nazi Germans and the Imperial Japanese for years on end up until that point when we joined in 1941. In the Korean War, we actively got involved in supporting the national sovereignty of South Korea due to an illegal invasion of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea onto their territory. We did not ever talk at any point in the Korean War about the ongoing costs of lives for the South Koreans and the United States forces and our men and boys who were sacrificing their lives in, once again, the tens and hundreds of thousands to defend a nation overseas and to defend what's right, even to the point of going to war with the Communist Chinese in the midst of that conflict. conflict. We did not ever budge, and we did not ever compromise. During the Gulf War, when the Iraqis invaded Kuwait, and violated the sovereignty of another country that was due its sovereignty under international law, the United States of America amalgamated a coalition of nations to stand down Saddam Hussein and his illegal invasion of Kuwait, and conducted an offensive and campaign that lasted for 6 months and resulted in the deaths of several hundred Americans and the deaths of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Iraqis. The destruction was so grave, the number is still indeterminate to this day. Yet nevertheless, we did not back down, and we pushed for it because we stood for what was right. Now in the modern day, with the war in Ukraine and the Russian Federation making it incredibly clear that their ambitions lie farther than Ukraine and farther into the Baltics and Poland, which are nations that we must defend by charter in the NATO convention, we now say that war is not worth fighting even if the fight is right. The Russian Federation invaded a foreign state, and at any other point in history, we would have spent American lives tooth and nail fighting till the finish to see that what was right in the world and that our sphere of influence would stand intact and that the U.S.'s banner of the Republic would continue to fly over the lands of the world that we control for at least another day. Now in this current day, the leadership and the administration of the United States is so weak and cowardice, even in its own judgment of foreign policy, in matters where American lives and blood is not even being spilt, to sit there and say that another country must give up a conflict in its own due course, in which it's defending itself from an illegal invasion by another foreign country, not only hell-bent on conquest of theirs, but also on the destruction of their people and the destruction of anything else within the country that those people hold dear. We tell them that they must give up, and not only disadvantage themselves extremely into the future indefinitely, but disadvantage our allies and the United States of America and the Grand Republic itself, so that way we can say that we were able to achieve a peace just before Christmas. It makes absolutely
And also, we
no
laugh
sense.
at them too. We laugh at them too while we're telling them to give up land. I don't know if y'all heard it today, but the U.S. president appeared to chuckle on a podcast or an interview with Fox News. He appeared to chuckle when he was asked about Ukraine giving up lands. He went, "They'll be giving that up soon," and like chuckled a little bit, which I thought was pretty damn sick, to say the least, because obviously Ukraine's been fighting for years and they've lost a lot of guys, a lot less than Russia, but they've lost a lot of guys trying to keep their land, which is rightfully theirs. Their country was invaded by Putin, and they've been basically being tortured for several years now at the hands of Putin, and now they're getting laughed at on top of losing their territory right now to Russia. So I mean, it's just sick all the way around, really.
It is absolutely sick. I'll have to be completely honest with y'all, folks. We hold back on comments like this as much as we can, but this is an absolutely horrendous sort of a foreign policy initiative at this point, and I've got to be honest with y'all, it does not leave me with a good opinion of the current administration in any form. I've never seen an administration hand over wholeheartedly U.S. interests and U.S. national security concerns to our enemies. Never have seen that once. Not in a single point in American history has that ever happened. There has not been a moment, there's not been a single moment that has happened. In the Paris Accords of 1972, we negotiated with the North Vietnamese to leave Vietnam. That's the only time that we have ever come in modern history the closest to pretty much just giving up to our enemies. And the only other time that we've done that throughout American history would be the Treaty of Ghent in 1815, where we ended the War of 1812, where we ended it with a white peace and a ceasefire with the British, to where we gained nothing from them and they gained nothing from us, and the war ended, and that was that. Those are the only two times in American history that we have ever even come close to handing over anything to our adversaries and enemies. Only 2 times in 250 years. And now today, even without us having to do this, without us being forced, due to the British marching over our lands like they did in the War of 1812, or the war in Vietnam going on endlessly without an end in sight, this is the first time that we've ever seen that we are not in a position like that, to where we have to make some sort of a concession, to where we have to give, and we're giving up, and we're not even involved in the fight directly. We're not even there. No, there are no U.S. soldiers in Ukraine. And we're going to force the Ukrainians, which are fighting on their own men, give their lives and spill blood on their very lands, on their very own soil, to defend every last inch of ground that they have for their own nation. And we are going to tell those people that aren't even Americans, with Americans not even involved directly in the fight, that they have to give up. I've never seen anything like that in my life. This is quite equivalent to Neville Chamberlain in the 1938 Munich Conference, which went down in infamy as the worst foreign policy maneuver that has ever been conducted throughout the history of world policies and diplomacy. So, with that in mind, it does appear that a lot of people at the moment are actually talking about the possible liquidation of European assets that the European Union could conduct to further finance and support the ongoing war in Ukraine if the United States is lost as an ally and strategic partner of the state of Ukraine. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So the EU is already preparing for the U.S. to pull support because they have to get prepared for that possibility, just like last time that the U.S. was threatening to do this. Because if it actually happens, someone has to actually be holding the bag. So the EU is trying to make sure that Ukraine does not have a funding gap. And the question in the poll says, will Ukraine's survival hinge on the EU liquidating frozen Russian assets if the USA ends support? And it looks like 47% said no, the EU could support Ukraine anyway, while 34% said yes. Basically, Ukraine's survival hinges on the EU liquidating the frozen Russian assets, and 10% said it would be a close call. So right now, the only thing that I'm aware of that's holding up the liquidation of Russian assets that's being held by Europe right now is Belgium. It appears that Belgium is generally hesitant to approve a loan backed by the frozen Russian assets because they want stronger legal and financial guarantees to protect themselves from Russian retaliation. So that is the country appearing to hold it up. That is a $200 billion lifeline, by the way, that would basically give Ukraine infinite funding for at least the next few years to be able to keep the fight up against Russia. So I would say personally, I don't think Ukraine's survival hinges on it necessarily, but it would strongly put Ukraine in a good position if they were able to liquidate and sell those frozen Russian assets. That would basically give Ukraine the funding they need to basically win the war, in my personal opinion. I think the war will wrap up in the next 2 or 3 years because the Russians, even with external help, they can't last that long because their economy still is on life support and it simply can't hold out for 2 or 3 more years. So I would say it would be a close call. I'm with the 10%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the European Union could support the state of Ukraine. It would be a significant financial expenditure for them to continue to support Ukraine into the future, but they do have the domestic manufacturing capabilities to be able to conduct such an action, and even without the liquidation of Russian assets at that. The collective GDP of the European Union is around $22 trillion, making the collective of the European Union the second largest economy by gross domestic product on the planet, and for that reason, they could financially support and float the Ukrainians even without the United States being involved at all. But that still will take a massive amount of effort and willpower by the Europeans to scrounge the money together from the multiple dozens of countries that make up the European Union to be able to continue to finance the ongoing conflict. So with that in mind, I hope that does address that well. And with that, folks, we are going to be moving on into the rest of the news for the... Oh, go ahead.
You know something real quick? I just want to say this because I'm trying to ride the line here like you're trying to do of not going too deep into our opinions here. But I do want to say this because I feel compelled to say it. One thing that y'all might notice is missing here that I'm starting to really, really see very strongly. Do you notice the lack of empathy from the United States leadership right now? Like I find that extremely disgusting. And I want to say that personally because a lot of people feel like this and not many people are saying it just outright. The U.S. leadership is acting like a sociopath. Like that's the honest to God truth. Ukraine deserves at least sympathy because they're fighting against a dictatorship and they're fighting against someone who commits war crimes on a regular basis. So at the minimum, Ukraine should at least get some empathy. And you have the U.S. president making statements like Ukraine doesn't hold the cards. He's chuckling about Ukraine giving up land and generally treating the situation like it's just a soccer game or a football game or something. There's people's lives that are being lost in Ukraine daily, including civilian lives, because they're fighting for their land and fighting to protect their families. And it seems like the U.S. leadership could at least, at the minimum, give them the respect that they're owed and at least do as human beings instead of treating it like it's a joke. That's something to me which is really irritating me, like very much. And it seems like it's getting more extreme. It's getting more cynical and more extreme daily. And that the U.S. leadership would be very wise to cut that out because it gives the U.S. a terrible look as a state as a whole. So it's just disgusting, like it really is.
I'd have to say it is horrendously disgusting, folks. I haven't seen anything like this before. I would hope that we never see anything like this again. But you know, there's There's about 3 more years of this possibly happening, just to be upfront. So it might happen again. I would hope that it doesn't, and I would hope that we back off of this right now. But this is the worst peace deal that I've ever seen presented to anyone outside of the Munich Conference of 1938. And that wasn't even a peace deal that was presented to the Czechs. The Czechs were just told that they have to accept it, and that was that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, before we move on, I do have to say this. I'll just be completely upfront. I've had to say this a couple of times. I'm going to make this one quite brief. Here on this channel, our analysis is unbiased. If something is absolutely stupid to the point that it's idiotic like this, we're not going to stray away from calling that out for what it is. If you are too political to be able to accept that at face value, that this is a stupid peace deal, then I could care less if you're here or not. I would actually encourage you to leave, because having that kind of stupidity and idiocy around on the channel only brings down the Lee Spring Army. I do not mean to say that in the most upfront terms possible, but at the same time, I'm not going to have people in here who are so blind and poorly mentally willed that one day they're all for supporting Ukraine because Putin sat there and pimped us out in Anchorage, and then the next day after that you can sit there and say that this peace deal that's unconditional surrender is a genius idea and only an idiot would disagree with it. I wouldn't even encourage people to be around who are that weak-willed to be able to just flip their opinions on a 180 like that from a day-to-day basis. That doesn't matter whether you're supporting the current guy or the last guy. That's how we do it here. And I'm not going to continue. I'm not even going to pretend like this is something that we're even going to consider. This is an absolutely stupid peace deal. If you disagree with that, I would encourage you to leave, and you don't have to announce your departure. But moving on from that, because if you announce your departure, you'll just get banned. At least if you leave without announcing your departure, at least you might be able to return someday when you actually realize that you missed the nightly news. So moving on from that, we are going to be getting on into the rest of the major news that we have over the course of the day, which we still have quite a large and significant amount of news to cover. Mostly, all of it doesn't have to do with the peace plan, because we've largely covered everything to do with the peace plan at this point. Still, the state of Ukraine is not the only major piece of news for the day, as we have been able to see that the United States of America has conducted its endless hunt for Captain Crack Sparrow. And Captain Crack Sparrow appears to kind of be vibing a little bit. We saw today down in Caracas that he held another major public speaking event, and it turned into this. I'm going to only play 2 seconds of the audio, and then I have to mute it, but I got to give you all an idea of what was actually going on down there. So that this is what's going on in Venezuela. Now,
what's going on with him? Like, what's wrong with Maduro?
I don't know. I have no clue.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is insane. I mean, like, there is still like a ton of assets off his coast, so the threat of being invaded is still not over. So I don't understand this whole thing. Is he going mad? Is he losing his mind because he's so worried about getting ousted? He's just like in denial at this point, or what?
I don't know. I think the guy's actually like mentally cracked. Like he's insane at this point. I think the whole deal of the U.S. Navy pretty much being off of the coast, the whole U.S. Navy, I think this has made him mentally break, because, I mean, who in the world does that? He held a national address today, and this was what he did at it.
That's crazy. I think he's like in denial. I think he's trying to distract himself because he's so freaked out and worried, because I don't think he really has anywhere to go except for Russia. And it's not perfectly clear if Russia's going to take him in if he has to flee, because of course there is a $50 million bounty on his head. So maybe I think he's just in denial.
Yeah, I think he's in denial at this point. And the situation is getting quite serious at this point. We're practically waiting for D-Day, at least actions to begin against the Republic of Venezuela at this point, because it is interesting sort of an occurrence that's going on. The United States has now declared a NOTAM over the entirety of the nation of Venezuela. And really quickly, to show y'all what the NOTAM includes, let me go and get y'all the information that we have. Well, actually, I believe it's this last marker here, showing the NOTAM and the airspace that it was issued over. So quite literally, all of Venezuela and its territorial waters as well. So everything, basically. And this was issued just a little bit earlier today at around noon. So it does appear that the United States has completely closed Venezuela's airspace officially with its NOTAM, and any flights within this area could be at risk of getting injured or destroyed due to some sort of actions that will be happening here in the near future. So it is quite clear at this point that the United States is going to be conducting some sort of military action against Venezuela. Otherwise, we wouldn't declare a NOTAM over the entirety of their airspace. But we do not know when strikes are going to be happening. I do have to remind everyone that we have a huge buildup of U.S. forces within the area at the moment. Just referencing Ian Ellis's work yesterday, this is the amount of U.S. forces that we have at sea right now within the Eastern Caribbean under Second Fleet's command. This is 20% of the entire U.S. Navy that is underway at sea at the moment. So this is quite a large deployment of U.S. forces. So for that reason, we do know that a strike is highly likely just because of the buildup of forces, and now with the NOTAM being issued, it seems as though we are getting incredibly close to some sort of strikes being conducted against Venezuela here in the very near future. And a lot of people have been talking about this NOTAM that was issued today and what they're thinking this is going to result in. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So the U.S. had us lurking around Enforcer HQs, 3, 4, whatever you want to call them. We were lurking around today because after the NOTAM was issued, that was pretty much our cue to get ready for something to happen. So far, obviously, nothing has happened, but the NOTAM is very, very interesting because, of course, that is telling all the commercial airliners to steer clear of the airspace because of imminent danger. So that usually indicates that strikes are going to occur, and right now the NOTAM is still in effect. So what are your thoughts? 42% said the U.S. will attack in under 72 hours, while 30% said the U.S. will not attack anytime soon, and 15% said it's simply too early to tell. And the NOTAM, we have to remember, first of all, today was the last day of military exercises by the U.S. military off the coast of Trinidad and Tobago. Today was the last day, according to my knowledge. So that could be why they issued the NOTAM as maybe a practice run. But at the same time, though, it seems a little bit interesting to issue it. I'm not sure for how long the NOTAM is going to last. Unfortunately, do we have that information, by the way? I don't recall seeing that in the notice.
Let me check here really quickly. Let's see here. That's for the airlines. Let me see if I can go here and read this little information here. Let's see here. Venezuelan military. Let's see.
It might be for an indefinite period of time if there's no specified time frame on it.
It actually does appear because they say they'll continue to monitor the risk environment for civil aviation operating in the region and make adjustments as appropriate. So that means that for now, this is indefinite.
Okay, so in that case, then I would say it is somewhat likely. I don't want to say with a certainty because we've said before that we thought we knew when it was going to be. We turned out to be wrong. So to predict something right now is a little bit interesting. We do know, though, that apparently, according to reports, the U.S. administration is still in contact with Maduro's regime, and allegedly they are hearing out Maduro on other issues that were not being told about in the public. So the dialogue is still open, which makes me a little bit skeptical that strikes are going to happen in less than 72 hours, but you never can tell. Sometimes the U.S. acts out of impulse instead of actual planning, at least from what I've seen. So I'm with the 14%. I think it's too early to tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
I wanted to say that it's a little early to tell. I would go with the 14% because, once again, I have absolutely no clue what the administration's doing. So, like, you know, we build up everything down there. We're spending about $1 billion a week to keep everything down there right now, and that would make you think that we have some urgency to start operations against them because of the significant cost of having everyone sit around. But at the same time, we could also just be doing this for leverage and then completely back out once we achieve very little or something along those lines. So I don't really know, to be entirely honest with you all, if strikes are going to be conducted within the next 72 hours or not. It could be happening tonight. It's about 10 p.m. Eastern time right now inside of the Republic of Venezuela. And so for that reason, it is nighttime there now, and U.S. strikes usually will happen during the nighttime, or at least start during the night. Historically, that's when everyone conducts their strikes, is in the midst of the night to start a conflict, and also conducting their strikes from then on. Usually those strikes are conducted at night. So it could happen tonight or the next night or the next night after that. Highly likely, unlikely to happen through the weekdays, or it might not happen at all. So we will have to see, generally, what's going to be happening with this. But I would also have to be within the unsure and undecided group. Also, the United States did warn airlines to avoid Venezuelan airspace indefinitely. So, once again, making it somewhat clear that strikes could happen. In the meantime, the Venezuelan Air Force was seen mobilizing today once again around the area of the city of Valencia, and we also were able to see, at least on flight radar, some of these aircraft, including a Venezuelan Air Force C-130 Hercules and an unidentified aircraft that was also flying outside the Maracay area as well, near to Lake Valencia, once again showing some level of Venezuelan air activity that was being conducted within the skies of Venezuela over the course of the day. In the meantime, with all this going on, and at least the appearance of U.S. strikes happening soon, the president has now stated that he will actually speak with Nicolas Maduro, and that he has something very specific to say. So, make that into what you will. Don't know what that is. That, we pretty much stated that this last Sunday. It's now Friday. It's 5 days later, and now apparently we're going to be talking to him again. We were already going to be talking to him again on Sunday 5 days ago. Apparently we haven't talked to him again at all, and so now we're going to be talking to him again in a couple of days or somewhere along those lines. It's sometime soon. So we don't know what's going to be coming out of this, and once again, it's leaving it up in the air exactly what's going to be happening, because we have absolutely no clue at the moment, unfortunately. So we are just waiting to see what happens, and whenever something happens, we will report on it. I do have to tell you, though, that as far as the foreign policy situation, backing off now would be a disaster. Going to go ahead and put that up front like we do on many things. If we back off now, we have already made it clear that the United States views Venezuela as a strategic threat. So if we back off, the Chinese and the Russians are going to start giving Venezuela a whole bunch of weapons. And then the next time we come around to try and deal with Venezuela in a couple of years, it's going to be very difficult to deal with them. It might cost lives, it might cost a lot of men, it's definitely going to cost a lot more money to deal with them. So now we have to deal with them. Originally, I was saying here on the channel that we should walk away and not turn this into a big issue, because it wasn't something that was deserving of being a big issue. Now we have turned it into a big issue through our actions in the Caribbean. So now we have to deal with it, and we can't back off. That's our real answer at this point, which is one that I wouldn't want to say, because there's still bigger things to deal with, like Russia, Iran, and China. But at the same time, now we've made this into the #1 top priority issue on the globe, and now we can't back off. So now this is the number one, first and foremost thing that we have to deal with at this point. And if we decide not to deal with it and we back off and walk away, we are basically screwing ourselves over when we try and deal with this again a couple of years down the road, because it is going to be something that the U.S. has to deal with again, because the Venezuelans are going to back out of whatever treaty or deal they make with us at some point in the future. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Just want to put that out there up front for the people who are here right now, so that way if we back off and leave from this whole deal with Venezuela, when I sit there and say that it's an absolutely stupid idea, people don't sit there and say that we're politically biased and we're just saying that because we're trying to hate on the president. I'm saying that right now before it even happens. If that happens, it's stupid, and that's an absolutely senseless sort of an action to take. I'm saying that up front so that way when it happens, because I have a feeling that it may, when I say that again, people aren't going, oh, he's just a hater. But moving on out of the Caribbean and on into the rest of our news, we still have a load of news to cover from around the rest of the world. But before we get on into the rest of that, I do want to make sure that we take a brief moment to say that we thank everyone so much for watching so far tonight. Tonight's audience hasn't been an absolutely massive one, generally because here and there, especially when we cover more abstract things like diplomatic events, most people just really aren't too interested in that, and I completely get that. But at the same time, I've got to thank everyone who is here tonight for caring and being concerned about these sorts of events and developments around the world, because they are very important. They are as important as really any other development that we cover on the news. It's just that these aren't as exciting as the others. Still, I got to thank y'all greatly, and I hope that y'all been enjoying the news so far, and I hope that y'all stick around, because we are continuing to cover this news every single day like we have for 1,367 days, and we'll do it 1,367 days into the future if necessary. But before we move on to the rest of our news for the night, of course starting in East Asia and moving our way back over towards Europe, we are going to make sure in the meantime to get a couple of questions from the chat, so that way people can have a snack break and a restroom break and a bit of like a halftime show, so that way they can come back and be ready for the next segment of news when it happens. And so, Matthew, we are going to get 3 questions from the chat. So what do we got?
All right, so our first one here is going to go to none other than Bobby, also known as LC39A. And I feel like we're saying his name all the time these days, because Bobby's always throwing in that generous support, and tonight is no exception. He threw in a $100 support, the biggest one of the night. And a huge shout to you, Bobby, for keeping us on the air, even during these tumultuous times right here, which is honestly not my favorite time to report on, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, you have to take the good and the bad all at the same time. Ukraine will come through in the end. But Bobby said the T word is achieving his original goal of NATO increasing their support of Ukraine, and I can't dress this up any better.
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Bobby43. And I mean, maybe, but I mean, even still, like you're saying, that's dressing it up the best you can. Really, what this is, it's waffling like we've seen in everything. I've never seen this much waffling in my life. It's rough to look at. I got to be honest. I just don't really. I hate covering the stuff, folks. It drains me mentally to cover stuff like this because we on the channel, me personally, I'll speak for myself personally. Matthew can put in his own 2 cents here, but me personally, I care a lot about this country. I live, breathe, and eat the United States every single day as far as my life goes and what I think about and what I think we should be doing for the best interest of the country, for the best interest of the people. That's what I think of every single day. And so whenever I have to come around to paying attention to this in the afternoon, because I take a lot of downtime in the middle of the day to try and not pay attention to this, so that way it's not just taking over my life all day. Whenever I sit down and have to start really paying attention to this in the afternoon, especially on days like this, like yesterday and today, it absolutely shreds me mentally. I just hate looking at it because I sit here and think there is clear actions that have to be taken for the United States to come out on top on this deal. And they're not even hard ones to make. It is the clear answers, the right answers to make. And those aren't being made. It's a horrific thing. We're still honored to know that so many people come here to this channel and y'all listen to us talk about this news, whether it's good or not. We're still honored to have all of y'all. And I got to thank you massively for support, LC39A, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to cover this news and keep it running. But I will say this, folks. I do want to make this somewhat clear. While I'm heavily disgusted at the current administration's actions and foreign policy, I will never say a single moment in my life that I am ashamed to be an American citizen or to be a citizen of the United States of America or any combination of those words that come down to say that I'm an American. I will never say that. I'm always proud of the country. I'm always proud of the country because it has nothing to do with whoever's in the Oval Office or whoever's in the Congress or the Supreme Court. It has to do with the people that live in this country every single day. The great and amazing people of all the different states in this grand republic, like those in Florida and Utah and California and Washington and New York and Wisconsin and Florida and everywhere else in between. Those are the people who make me proud to be an American every single day. And in my opinion, that is the real reason why we cover this news. We don't cover this news to cheerlead for some man or a woman who's trying to get into the Oval Office, or did, or anything along those lines. We cover this news because I care, myself personally, about all the people who watch this channel that are from the United States, and all of our friends who are from around the rest of the world that also are part of our sphere of influence as well. Y'all are the people who make me have a lot of encouragement and inspiration to get up every single day and to be able to cover this news, because I know that there's a lot of well-minded Americans out there that are working to the hill every single day to be able to try and even just pay their bills, and somehow, even still, through all of that effort and all of that work and having to keep your nose right on the grindstone, y'all somehow lift your head up every single day to have a little bit of care and attention about what's going on with our country and what's going on for its interests and the fight for our way of life around the entirety of the world. And that is a truly incredible and sort of a profound thing, and I've got to thank y'all all greatly once again for being here with us tonight, and a huge thanks to you, LC39A, for being one of those few who not only can lift their head up from the grindstone, but can also support this channel so that way we can keep it running and keep the news rolling for millions of people every single month. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I got to say, I second that as well. For all the Americans know that we're not defined by one person. That one individual that holds the office of the president does not define our entire country. There are over 330 million people that are hardworking Americans in our country, and that one individual does not define us all. That is maybe the person that holds office for 4 years, but after 4 years, they can get lost and we get somebody new that we elect. So the only thing that I would ask, especially of our foreign viewers that are not American, is I would ask this, to please not judge us based on the actions of one individual, because as you can see, there's almost a miracle happening right now in our country with bipartisan condemnation of this capitulation plans being proposed right now. That, as everybody already knows, that is almost a miracle in itself that's happening right there, because those two parties can't agree on anything basically, but somehow they're able to agree on supporting Ukraine, which is mind-boggling to me at least. So that's what America we know, the America that supports our allies and things like that. that's the America that I support, and that's the America that will prevail in the end. So please don't judge us too harshly. I know we have like Canadians, we have Europeans in the chat, we have all kinds of people in the chat from all over, and I know they're looking at us right now and thinking, what the hell is wrong with the United States? And I want to know what the hell is wrong with us too. This is my country that I love very much and will always be loyal to 100%. And I want to know what the hell is going on with it. And I live here. So, you know, it's just interesting times, and we got to hope that it'll get better. And as long as we keep working at it, it will get better.
And so with that, I hope we address that both the best we can. A humongous thanks to you once again for support, Bobby, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because even through days like these, folks like you who go out of their way to support this channel, you help us to be able to continue to cover the news in the way we've done it while my esophagus collapsed right there for comedic effect for 1,367 days. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next support here goes to none other than Truckin' Chef. And Truckin' Chef put in a $100 support. And a huge shout out to you, good sir, for that massive support right there. And we do appreciate that. That is the second $100 support of the night. And Truckin' Chef said, I support you, enforcers, and good job, brothers.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Truckin' Chef 6034. It's a wonderful thing to know that a lot of people support the channel. And you know what's crazy, folks, is that whenever we have any sort of a critical comment to make, and this isn't the first rodeo that we've had with this on a president. This is the first rodeo that we've had with, well, actually, this is probably the second or third one that we've had with this president. I think we had at least 6 of them with the last president. But whenever we do this stuff, there are some people out there who get really, really enraged about us criticizing their guy. And I got to tell you, I will be honest with y'all. One of the problems with this country, the United States of America, are people like that. People who are too political and have gotten too far into the Kool-Aid on one end or the other that they can't see any sense beyond their own nose. Those people are an issue. They come from all directions, by the way. That's not directed at one party or the other. One party's in charge right now. They have the White House, and they generally have a majority in the Congress. But before that was the case, it was the other party that had the majority and had the Oval Office and the majority in the Congress generally. And when that was going on, we still were dealing with the same thing. And people stick their heads in the sand, wholeheartedly believe in something without it doing any research or having any critical thinking or falling out of favor with people whenever they start to do things that clearly are not within our best interests. And then they want to make that our problem. And as far as it goes, Truckin' Chef, I thank folks like you for saying that you support us to the hilt and you support us through and through till the end. Because the truth of the matter is, folks, is that we will never compromise on this channel on what we do. If a stupid decision is stupid, I do not care how many people come out of the woodwork to tell us that they disagree with what we're saying and that they're unsubscribing and that they're going to report us to YouTube or whatever stuff these people say, or that they're going to kill us. Some of them go that far. We will continue to say what we say because we've been dealing with the same kind of pressure no matter who's in charge for 4 years, because we don't have a political affiliation. We don't have a dog in the fight, and I would rather stand alone and face the fire on our own, Enforcer Matt and me, and be in the right than sit there and be in a group of people who are half of the time wrong no matter which one you pick. So I got to thank you massively for the support, Truckin' Chef, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you are helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to make sure that the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the final question of the segment. Also, by the way, I wanted to throw this out there to y'all. People sometimes, they get a little unhappy with what we say. And you know what's funny, folks, is that what's crazy is that there's a load of bots who come in here, and I'll tell y'all this because this is the funniest thing. We have probably had, I would say, 90 comments in the live chat from individual people that they are unsubscribing from the channel. I just went and checked the subscriber count, and it looks like only 20 people have unsubscribed. So I'm assuming that the large majority of the people saying that are bots that never were subscribed or never watched the channel, because they aren't, like, none of them are unsubscribing. So a little bit interesting with that one. And I was sitting there thinking, Matthew, when I was looking at that, I was like, huh. I was like, so now one of the bot tactics is just saying they're unsubscribing to make it look like a wave of people are leaving, when practically no one's leaving. Pretty much everyone's on board with us at the moment.
We don't really have like the exact numbers to describe what the actual support is for certain issues. Like we don't have it on hand. But at the same time, though, I do want to point this out. Go take a look, Enforcer, at Senator Roger Wicker's Twitter page. By the way, this tells us something. This really does tell us something. Let me know when you have that pulled up real quick, because I want to make a point about his recent post about Ukraine and the peace plan when he spoke out about it. So let's see if we can get that here in just a second.
Is it on our Twitter?
Yeah, if you just punch in Senator Roger Wicker's page, you just pull that up. It should be the second post down. I want to show you the impression rate on that post versus his other post.
Ah, yeah, here we are. And here it is.
So take a look there. His post right here where he called out this capitulation plan and said it was a joke, it has almost 287,000 views on it. If you look at his other posts here, they only have about like 3, 4, 5,000 views or something. The people are supporting what this guy is saying when he's speaking out against the capitulation plan. And this guy right here, I believe, is a member of, let's just double check here. Yeah, I believe he's a GOP, he's a Republican. So this guy right here is getting the message from the American people, clicking and liking and viewing his post and sharing it, that this has a lot of support behind it. And that's some big numbers right there. For 300,000 views for that guy's Twitter page, that's pretty large for him, which will send the message to that senator to let him know that he needs to support that issue because apparently Americans care a lot about it. So when people speak up, these people are forced to listen after a while. They can't simply ignore people speaking out on a certain issue. If they realize there is massive public support, they will change their stance if they were anti-Ukraine in the past. So that's a good sign to me that a lot of Americans do support Ukraine. And the bots, while they're a large, loud crowd, they're not really that large in reality, because otherwise the numbers wouldn't be there on these posts that you're seeing all over Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like there's a load of support for people not agreeing with this plan in the public at all. The virality of this tweet from the senator definitely shows that, and you could probably go and look at anyone's tweet that we showed tonight and see the very same sorts of results. A lot of people are absolutely enraged about this, and they're going around and trying to find anything from any official that's condemning this. And considering that this senator here in the Senate is a member of the majority party, and just to explain my language here, folks, we don't try and say the political names of the political parties on the channel. So if we say the majority party, it's whichever one has the majority of the senators in Congress and the representatives in the Congress as well. And currently, the GOP is the majority party, and the Democrats are the minority. In the last term, in the last presidency, it was actually the other way around, I believe. I believe that there was a majority. The majority party was actually the Democrats, but we generally try and not say the names because that's like a Pavlov dog whistle for a lot of people, and they go mental just at the mention of the names of the parties, so we try not to do that. But beyond that, it is definitely showing that there is a large amount of condemnation for the peace deal, and how in the world could there not be? I mean, how in the world could there not? And I've seen very few people, folks, and they're only the people. These are the only people I've seen that have approved this peace plan today. They are only the people who are directly affiliated with the president, that are the ones that are supporting this. I've seen no one else support this. I saw a billionaire that's affiliated with the president say that everyone who supports continuing the war are idiots, which I don't even know where in the hell he gets that idea from. He ought to stick to making rockets. And then a couple of other people in the executive supported it because, the president's their boss. He can just have them removed or force them to resign if he doesn't like what they say. And beyond that, everyone else condemned this. So, there's literally no one out there that's agreeing with us anywhere in the world. But anyways, I hope that does address that well. Also, by the way, I got to say, man, this guy appears to be a big fan of Amtrak and the new Mardi Gras service, because if you look at a lot of his posts, they have a lot to do with Amtrak. So good on him. That I would agree on that topic as well. It's great to see the Mardi Gras service return to the South. But anyways.
And he's from Mississippi.
And he's from Mississippi, which is right next door to Alabama. And Mississippi and Alabama are basically like the same state for the large part. Like, they're very similar in a lot of ways. So very interesting to see that. But anyways, with that, folks, I hope we were able to address that the best we can. A huge thanks once again to Truck and Chef for the support and help with this channel to keep it running. And with that, I believe we're on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on through the rest of the news.
All right, and the final one this segment, and also, by the way, if you put in a super chat, we will get to it in our next question segment. So we only read off 3 in our first one. We'll get to the rest of them in the last segment. So we've not lost it, by the way. We will get to it. But jumping to our last one of this segment, this one goes to Bobby yet again. And Bobby threw in another massive $100 support, and a huge shout out to you, Bobby, for the total $200 support tonight. And it's extremely generous, and we do appreciate that, of course, very, very much. And Bobby said, I am a spending bot, LOL, and LSA.
You are? Ban him. I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm just playing. A huge thanks to you, though, for the massive support, Bobby, once again, because I gotta say, everyone who throws in support to the channel, whether it's $1 or hundreds of dollars, every single person puts in their part that makes this channel possible. And we are hugely appreciative of you, Bobby. You've been massively supporting this channel for months at this point, and really helping us to be able to make this thing a reality, to where we can work on this every day and focus all of our time and efforts on covering news like this. I gotta thank you so much for that. Whether the news is great or not, we still have the ability to cover it thanks to amazing folks like you. So a humongous thanks to you once again for that unbelievably incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would have never been able to make this thing a reality and keep it rolling. So a humongous thanks once again. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on out of this question segment and on into the rest of the news from around the world. Moving us on into Vladivostok and the Russian Federation, it did appear that a ship was burning outside of the port in the bay. The ship appears to have been just embroiled in flame. We're assuming that the ship eventually lost its structural integrity and sank due to the ongoing fires, but we do not know why the fire broke out, and also the ship that was involved, at least at the moment. Moving on from that, we also saw another derailment happen within the area of Irkutsk on the Trans-Siberian Railway.
Oh, wow. Look at that. This is another one, like separate from the first one we saw the other day?
Yeah, this is a totally second derailment that happened within the past 2 days.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. They're happening back to back like that. That's not normal, is it?
No, absolutely not. This is not normal at all. I mean, the only time that this would be normal would be in the United States. I'm just kidding. It doesn't happen a lot in the United States, folks, because of the Safety and Appliances Act. But still, the Russians are, they're not doing good on the railroads. I think that has a lot to do with sabotage that's happening in Russia. We cannot confirm that. We don't know if partisans are sabotaging their railways, but it sure as hell looks like it with the amount of violent derailments that are happening inside of Russia. Moving on out of that, though, and on down into the Middle East, we also heard that the Israelis are now starting major military operations into the West Bank, and the IDF are raiding at least 7 towns at once, and IDF convoys have also been entering Ramallah within the West Bank. We're not sure why these actions are happening. It appears that most of the settlements are between Jerusalem and Ramallah from what we are seeing at the moment, so we will be keeping an eye on that and trying to figure out what exactly is going on in the future with that entire operation. Also, by the way, if you didn't know yet that the Indian Air Force sucks, I'm here to remind you all that the Indian Air Force still sucks, because at the Dubai Air Show today, an Indian Air Force jet ended up crashing during a demonstration, and it was none other than a Tejas that crashed, which is the indigenously made Indian fighter. So let me go show you all the Tejas fighter really quickly so that way you could see it a little bit better. This is the Tejas, which is their 4th generation fighter that they made entirely within India. It does require a lot of imported foreign parts, especially for the avionics systems, the computers, and the radars. But outside of that, the airframe is actually indigenously built within India. I don't know what's up with the Indian Air Force. We said that they sucked during the Pakistan-India border war, and some people didn't want to believe us, and that was primarily Indian bots. But if you didn't believe that the Indian Air Force sucks, somehow the only time that we've ever seen them in a international air show this year, they end up crashing a plane. There it is right there. Belly flopped it straight into the ground.
That's bad. Also, by the way, unfortunately, the pilot did not make it out of this crash right here, so that was tragic.
Yeah, tragic indeed. Once I gotta say, folks, what are they doing in India? Are they not training these pilots at all? Like, how in the world can they end up not only losing an air confrontation with Pakistan 5-0, they lost 5 aircraft and the Pakistanis lost 0. How in the world can they lose that badly in an air confrontation? And how in the world can they end up losing multiple other aircraft in accidents like this in India since then? And then also at an international air show, which is, for the Dubai example, is used to market their aircraft, and usually they pick the best pilots from their country to be able to display their aircraft and show them off. Even the best pilot in the country somehow ended up crashing the Tejas in the middle of the demonstration. And these are pre-planned, these are choreographed, so I have no clue what's going on with the Indian Air Force. But apparently they have some significant training issues, I'd assume, because it seems like most of their pilots can't fly the planes they're in. Moving on out of Dubai, however, and generally out of the Middle East at this point, we also have been able to hear of further developments from around the world, and primarily within Russia. Because for a lot of people who are saying that the Ukrainians are screwed and the Russians are holding all the cards, Russia is in such bad economic straits as of today that Russia has started selling off of its gold reserves for the first time to pay for the war. So I guess that's a lot for the people who are saying that the U.S. dollar is a fiat currency because it's not backed by gold. Here in a little bit, Russia is going to sell all of their gold off to the point that their currency, which was not even backed by gold in the first place, also won't even have the chance of being backed by gold. The Bank of Russia has, for the first time, started real sales of physical gold from its reserves as part of the finance ministry's operations to fund the state budget. The central bank has begun to mirror the gold transactions of the National Wealth Fund carried out by the government, the regulator's press service reported. These are the NWF gold sales the finance ministry has been conducting in recent years. Until recently, these operations were virtual. The government did not sell the precious metal on the market, but instead sold it to the central bank, effectively shifting the gold from one pocket to another. As a result, the bullion demand remained part of Russia's gold reserves, which exceeded 2.3 thousand tons, which is the fifth largest gold reserve in the world. Now the situation has changed. The central bank has begun conducting real operations involving the sale of physical gold, similar to how the Chinese yuan from the NWF are also being traded. Since the liquidity of the domestic gold market has increased in recent years, in connection with the implementation of the budget rule and other NWF operations, the Bank of Russia carries out these equivalent market operations not only by buying and selling yuan for rubles, but also partly buying and selling gold. The central bank explained it did not specify when exactly the gold sales began or their volume. Before the war, the NWF held 405.7 tons of gold. Since then, the finance ministry has sold off 57% of that stockpile, 233 tons roughly, to patch budget holes. As a result, by the 1st of November of 2025, the fund's gold holdings has fallen to 173 tons. The total volume of the NWF's liquid assets, which include gold and Chinese yuan, has shrunken by 55% from 113.5 billion to 51.6 billion. Relative to GDP, the fund's unspent reserves have fallen fourfold, 1.9% of GDP compared to 7.3% before the war. In short,
you know Russia's hurting if Gollum's having to start selling off the precious metals. Gollum is getting desperate at this point. My precious. He needs money at this point, and he doesn't need rubles because those are worthless. Some people said this today, which it's a decent theory, but I don't think it's the case. Some people are saying, "Oh, Russia's just playing 4D chess again." Russia sees the gold price really high, so they're trying to sell their gold and cash in. But the problem is, though, wasn't this their sovereign wealth fund or something? This was their national wealth fund, where it says right there. So this was supposed to be backing up their reserve. So you don't really just sell that like it's an investment fund or something like that. You don't just sell the gold because you want the money. You keep it because it's for the basically the Russian version of the Fed, essentially. So they're not treating it like it's your personal stock portfolio or your asset portfolio. That's not the way you do it. So Gollum, he's going off.
I gotta say, apparently so, and it doesn't look like they're doing all too well because of this. When you're having to start selling physical gold to make money, you are broke at that point. There's no money left because no currency in the world. Let's see, is there a currency still backed by gold? I want to make sure that I get an answer to this really quickly. Let's see. No country on the planet currently uses the gold standard, so absolutely nobody on the planet backs their money with gold. So the fact that the Russians are selling this off to try and make money, it literally means that they have run out of money, because if the currency is only faith-based, which the ruble is, and that's what the Russians use to buy and trade things, then they've run out of money to the point they're having to sell the gold for foreign currencies somehow, somewhere, to be able to generate any kind of money. So that is absolutely horrendous. And also, Matthew, what are people thinking about this as well?
All right. So now that we've heard that Russia has begun selling its gold reserves, which is a little bit interesting to say the least, what does that mean? We're not economists, but we can take a good educated guess. And 52% said Russia is losing external support, probably from China, and now they're having to sell off gold to build a fund the war, while 39% said Russia's trying to ramp up the war efforts, and 2% said there's no reason in particular. So I am still of the strong belief that China is likely supporting Russia financially in some way or another, either buying their oil on the back market. That's one way they're probably helping them, and also probably helping them through other means, like for example, buying Russian goods when they really don't have to, just to keep the Russians propped up. So I'm a strong believer in that. Once again, there's limited proof for it, but I'm a strong believer in that theory. But at the same time, though, I think Russia, even with that external help, is still struggling because right now they're pouring basically all of their money into the military, and their citizens are struggling. The citizens are really, really struggling quite badly, and the ruble is still devaluing. So I would say they're probably selling it off to basically pay off some debts and also keep their economy afloat. It's probably just for life support, basically, because what country goes and sells their gold reserves just because they're like, oh, we just need some cash today, let's go sell it. It's a country, it's not a person. So for a country to do that, they're in very foul shape. So I'm actually with the 2%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that they are really bad off. I would have to be with the 52%. I think that the Chinese are not supporting them that heavily, and so they are just literally running out of money, and they're having to try and find a way to get money. So I hope that does address that the best we can, at least in my opinion. And also, really quickly, I have seen some people bringing up the whole thing with the petrodollar and everything. The U.S. is not backed by oil. The U.S. dollar is not backed by oil. It's a faith-based currency like every other. It is backed on the faith that a dollar is worth a dollar. That's literally what it's backed by, is that you believe a dollar is worth a dollar, and that that dollar has some set value amount to it that buys a specific thing, or a specific amount of a thing. That's all there is to it. The whole petrodollar concept is made up by like these wildly loony conspiracy theorists who can't just take things at face value. Everything's got to be extremely convoluted in ways that don't make sense. Like the idea of the US's dollar being backed by oil that is produced in the Middle East, although we make the largest amount of oil in the world. So, the whole conspiracy theory doesn't even make any sense, because if we were backing it off of oil, wouldn't we just back it off of U.S. oil instead of Middle Eastern oil? I mean, we make the most in the world, more than Saudi Arabia and Russia. Why won't we back it off of American oil? So why in the world would the Middle East hold some sort of indomitable control on the U.S. dollar because of their oil when we make more oil than them? Like, that just completely destroys most of the conspiracy theory at that point. And also, I saw someone else say, let's see, that's that Nixon scam. Do you not know that every country in the world runs their currency like the US dollar? There are no currencies in the world that are backed by gold, silver, or anything anymore. Every currency on the planet is a faith-based currency. So it's not like a US scam that's going on. The Russian ruble does that. The British pound does that. The euro does that. Every single currency in the world, even the Argentine pesos that we just traded for that are worthless, those also are just backed by faith. There's not a single currency in the world where where there is an exception to that. So I don't know why a lot of people like to go, oh, that damn US conspiracy theory, that it's that Nixon shit. It's like everyone does that. So how in the world is Nixon at fault for that? Why in the world is he also the one who's picked out for that? And then on top of that, every country in the world does it. So why in the world is that America's problem if everyone on the planet, including us, has a faith-based currency? Makes no sense. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to get on into the news from Ukraine itself. Ukraine, as we call it. We have a decent amount of frontline news out of Ukraine today, by the way, and we got to get on into it. We got to get to the good stuff. Starting off with in western Ukraine, a Ukrainian soldier did manage to shoot down a Russian missile with a manpad. Did y'all know that the war in Ukraine was the first time in recorded history of war that a cruise missile was shot down by a manpad?
That's crazy, honestly. A man pad, a man portable defense system out here doing work on the battlefield.
Work. It's really doing crazy work. Man, it's working. Moving on from that and on out of the area. Also, by the way, folks, the speech from Zelensky is actually incredibly important to the news about the peace deal today. So when that speech comes on tonight, folks, I would highly encourage y'all to actually listen to it because it is quite an important speech. Probably the most important one that he's given as far as foreign policy developments in the war. But moving on from that and on into the location unknowns, we also got to see an American-provided MRAP and a Max Pro. Take a look at this. There's the MRAP. Rolling on around, and there's the Max Pro. Take a look at that. Wonderful vehicle. It's good to know that the U.S. did give them a lot of those in the past, and hopefully we give them a lot more in the future. We also saw that a Russian assault shed ran over a landmine today, and was caught on film doing that. Here it comes. Vadim, Bliad! Oh, look, there it is. It's an MTLB.
Oh, wow. Look at it go.
Man, it's going off-road. Wait a minute, it's going off-road. You're going the
brother?
wrong way. Oh!
Oh my God! Look at that. They call that a popper. Jalapeno popper.
And it looks like the engine's smoking, so it looks like it was knocked out immediately. Oh, and they're bailing. They're running for the trees.
Man, I'll tell you what, that was a dumb idea to go off road. She just stayed on the beaten path, as they say.
Man,
they're trying to be alpha chads. They're trying to go off the beaten path and make their own way. It didn't go too well.
Man, let's watch that again. Oh, wait, it's further back. Here we go.
Oh,
my God.
Da-da-da.
Man, I'm telling you. Oh, goodness. That is, man. You know, the Russians, they just, you know, and these people are the ones who supposedly hold all the cards, people. These people. Also, we got to see that the Ukrainian border guards did rotate out their forces. Sadly, the trip back from the post is mud-filled at the moment from the Rasputitsa. So the guys who returned, they were quite muddy.
Оце я понімаю, чоловіки приїхали з війни. Це дозор. Хто сотку хоче? Хто сотку? Хто сотку хоче, пацани? А ви?
Well,
That is muddy as hell. And wouldn't you hate to fight in an environment like that? Like that's like hell on earth having to fight in that mud.
I would agree, man. That would be absolute hell to fight in the mud like that. And they've been doing that for 3 years now. Also, we got to see the casualty report for the past 24 hours. And according to Ms. D, keeper of the records, losses are at or just below averages except for troop losses. And according to the last 24 hours casualty report, we have been able to see that 1,050 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 3 APCs, 65 supply trucks, 20 artillery pieces, and 150 drones. Generally a pretty decent day, not too bad. But still, the Ukrainians are holding their ground. Moving on from that and out of the area of the location unknowns, we also got to see in Vovchansk today that some Russians were getting hit by the Ukrainian border guard units. We can see one of the drones of the border guards here, making sure to check the Russians' papers and ensure that they entered the country through a legal port of entry. And it does not appear that they did, so the Ukrainians blew them up. And we also see them doing that again.
Oh, dear. Word has it they crossed into the area through the Crimea River because they're trying to Crimea River.
Is that an excavator?
That sounded better. That could be, honestly. It could be special equipment. I think that is special equipment, actually.
Oh, they got it. Look at that. Look at that.
Well, damn. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, look at Buhanka.
Bam.
Well,
oh, damn.
Wow.
They blew the thing to
Give us the
shreds.
after-action report on that one.
The border guards, they really do protect that border well, you know? It's really impressive, the work that they do on the border.
Also, by the way, I gotta admit, my Crimea River joke fell very flat. It sounded better in my head when I was thinking about it than it really came out. So, like, that's a damn shame. But, you know, Crimea River, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, don't you know?
Man, I gave you, like, the perfect segue out of there. I was like, is that an excavator? And then you returned to it. I'm like, oh, man. But honestly, like, respectfully, though, it was a good attempt. I mean, like, it's a good joke that we did before. But I feel like, I don't know, that one has to revolve around something that deals with Crimea for it to really hit. Outside of that, I don't know. Like, it kind of does miss. But anyways, moving on into northern Kupiansk, we did get to see the Russians within the northern part of the town raising a flag near to a small factory. This does confirm that the Russians are in northern Kupiansk. This is looking north to south through the city of Kupiansk. And it is showing us that the Russian Federation is in the town, but fighting is still quite heavy in the area.
Honestly, I feel like if I could be left with just one sound in the soundboard, I think what would sum up the last 5 years or so of like foreign policy and stuff would be that womp womp womp. Honestly, I'd be good if they just left me with that one.
Man, honestly, I would agree. I think that would be a good sound effect. There goes another 2 subscribers. That's it. I'm leaving. It's like, okay. Oh no. Man, that's like, like I got to tell you, other folks, whenever someone puts in "I'm unsubscribing" in the live chat, that has the same energy as Karen going to Macy's and telling them that they're never shopping there again. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like, it's like, that's fine. It doesn't really matter too much. But moving on from that and down to the area of Konstantinivka, we also got to see the Russians getting hit by the 28th Mechanized Brigade. Oh, is that an artillery piece covered in scrap? It is! Did it! And they did. Oh. Oh, look, Jack, they gotta bomb the Russians. Oh, dang, that thing looked like a hell after that. I mean, it's like it got bombed or something.
Oh, look at that old jalopy. That was like a cruiser bike. That wasn't even a dirt bike or something.
Yeah, it does look like it was a little dirt bike. Mm. Mm. And William, you don't have to say sorry for not supporting us. We're happy to have folks here in general. And I know we don't get to say that a lot to all the folks who aren't throwing in super chats because usually most of our time is spent addressing super chats. But we're happy to have everyone here, whether people are supporting or not. We're just happy that people listen to us, really. But with that, we are going to be moving on from that clip from the 28th Mechanized Brigade and moving further on down towards the Pokrovsk battlefield, where we saw the 68th Jaeger Brigade also targeting and destroying Russian positions within the northern flank of the Pokrovsk battlefield.
I got something here for all the people saying they're unsubbing. What do you call it when you finesse someone's Subway sandwich?
An unsub.
You're gonna unsub them. You're unsubbing because you're taking their sub away. You're gonna unsub them. You're gonna just sort of like take it away and like kind of keep it for yourself and something like that, or something.
Man, I gotta tell you, man. I gotta tell you. But I gotta say, folks, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing, that whole deal with that. There's a lot I could weigh in on that, but I'll refrain for now. We'll keep pushing through the news. In the meantime, in Pokrovsk, we also got to see the 59th Assault Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces also targeting and destroying Russian tanks. That's an AI-generated image, by the way. That's not a real tank of any type. But the Ukrainians did blow one up that kind of looks similar to it.
Oh boy, I get no respect around here. I get no respect around here. They said he's a news reporter. They said he's trying to get into comedy. They said, oh man, I'm telling you, the only joke here is his jokes. Oh, I'm telling you, that's a real joke. Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect out here. They said, go outside and get some fresh air. I went outside and breathed in a chunk of dust. They said, get a humidifier. That'll fix your problems. I said, oh man, a humidifier. The air doesn't want to be near me. The air left. It's not here. My lungs are hurting. Oh man, I'm telling you.
Oh man, I can't breathe. Oh man. But moving on to the Nets, we also get to see a blackout within the city. The power plants got hit again, by the way. Well, that's the end of that clip. And moving on out to Donetsk, it's now time for us to cover a little bit of additional news that we have from Europe that we did not cover earlier, but I was saving for now, right before we get to Zelensky's speech. And I want to make this incredibly clear, folks. Zelensky's speech is coming up very soon. I heavily encourage anyone who's here right now to listen to the whole speech. If you haven't listened to the whole speech before from Zelensky, this one is the one that you will want to listen to, because this is the most important speech that he has given so far. It's not a tearjerker, and it doesn't pull at the heartstrings. It is more so just the business of what is most likely going to be happening here in the future. So highly encourage y'all to listen to that here in a minute. But moving on into France, we did get to hear, along with the additional French statements today, that France's top military officials have called for a willingness to sacrifice the nation's children and urged cities to prepare for war, as it's generally on the horizon. this makes it seem like the French military officials are saying, we're going to take your kids out back and have them shot. That's not at all the case. What they are saying through the statements that were made today by the top officials of the French military is that the nation has to be ready to lose their sons and daughters in an upcoming war, because at this point it largely appears inevitable according to what they can see at the moment. So generally the French outlook on the situation in Europe is rather grim, and they actually do believe that war is right around the corner at this point inside of Europe. Not only that, but the Swedish also added on to that as well today, as the Swedish Supreme Commander, Michael Claesson, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, warns Russia could test NATO's defense guarantee very soon in the Baltics or elsewhere. He says such a test could happen at any time, now or in the coming years, and may not involve massive ground operations, but rather limited military actions, making it incredibly clear that a large amount of European countries, including Sweden and France, are both believing that war is very much on the horizon and is a high likelihood at this point, especially with how things are going in the world currently in foreign policy. And a lot of people have been weighing in and talking about the statements specifically from the French today. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So we heard from a French top military official today. He said, we must be prepared to lose our children in the upcoming imminent war. And what are your thoughts? 76% said that's extreme but true, while 10% said I agree somewhat, and 9% said that's unrealistic and distasteful. So I will say this, the fella is not a diplomat necessarily, so his job is not necessarily to put the words out there in the most graceful way possible. I'll be honest with you, kind of a bad choice of words if you ask me from a diplomatic side of things, but he is right. He's just kind of saying the silent part out loud, which is kind of the part that people really don't like to hear, which generally should be kept kind of quiet because obviously children do get lost in war. It's a very nasty, horrible part of war, but he's just saying that part out loud. So it is true. It's extreme, but true. I'm with the 76%. I just wouldn't have worded it like that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would generally say it's extreme but true. That is what war is. You lose your children. I mean, if you call the 18-year-olds that are conscripted in the military service children, which most people would, that is extreme, but it is true. That is what war is. Generally, that's the reason why you want to make the strong actions you need in the diplomacy maneuvers situation, so that way it never turns into a war. But it doesn't really seem that some people understand that at the moment. But unfortunately, they'll have to learn the hard way, like everyone did in the Second World War, if they end up continuing to push on with what they're saying and believing right now. Now, with that in mind, folks, it is time for us to actually move on into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And usually we would make this into a moment where we make it sound like it's going to be really neat. We go, peach! Tonight, I'm actually going to make this one a little bit serious. This is the most serious speech that Zelensky has ever given. So we are about to go into what is pretty much the nation-making address that Putin made to the state of Ukraine today. So, without further ado, here is the speech from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky.
Українці, українки, у житті кожної нації є момент, коли всім треба поговорити. Чесно, спокійно, без домислів, чуток, пліток, без усього зайвого. Так, як є, так, як я завжди намагаюсь говорити з вами. Зараз один з найважчих моментів нашої історії. Зараз тиск на Україну один з найважчих. Зараз Україна може опинитися перед дуже складним вибором. Або втрата гідності, або ризик втрати ключового партнера. Або складні 28 пунктів, або вкрай важка зима. Найважча та подальші ризики. Життя без свободи, без гідності, без справедливості. І щоб ми вірили тому, хто напав вже двічі. Від нас чекатимуть відповідь. Хоча насправді я вже її дав 20 травня 2019 року, коли, присягаючи на вірність Україні, зокрема сказав: я, Володимир Зеленський, волею народу обраний президентом України, зобов'язуюсь усіма своїми справами боронити суверенітет і незалежність України, обстоювати права і свободи громадян, додержуватися Конституції і законів України, виконувати свої обов'язки в інтересах усіх співвітчизників, підносити авторитет України в світі. Для мене це не протокольна формальність, для галочки це клятва. І кожного дня, кожному її слову я бережу вірність. І я ніколи її не зраджу. Національний український інтерес має бути врахований. Ми не робимо гучних заяв, ми будемо спокійно працювати з Америкою та усіма партнерами. Буде конструктивний пошук рішень з нашим головним партнером. Я буду наводити аргументи, я буду переконувати, пропонувати альтернативи, але точно ми не дамо ворогу приводів сказати, що це Україна не хоче миру, що це вона зриває процес і це Україна не готова до дипломатії. Такого не буде. Україна працюватиме швидко. Сьогодні, в суботу і неділю, весь наступний тиждень. І стільки, скільки це буде потрібно в режимі 24/7, я буду боротись за те, аби серед всіх пунктів плану не було пропущено щонайменше двох. Це гідність і свобода українців, бо саме на цьому базується все інше, наш суверенітет, наша незалежність, наша земля, наші люди і українське майбутнє. Ми будемо і маємо робити все, аби в результаті сталося закінчення війни. І не сталося закінчення України, закінчення Європи і глобального миру. Я говорив щойно з європейцями, ми розраховуємо на європейських друзів, які точно розуміють, що Росія не десь далеко, що вона поруч з кордонами ЄС, що Україна зараз є єдиним щитом, який відділяє комфортне європейське життя від планів Путіна. Ми пам'ятаємо, Європа була з нами. Ми віримо, Європа буде з нами. Україна не має бачити дежавю 24 лютого, коли було відчуття, що ми наодинці, коли ніхто не міг зупинити Росію, окрім наших героїчних людей, які стіною стали проти армії Путіна. І нам, безумовно, було дуже приємно, коли світ казав, українці, вони неймовірні, Боже, які вони українці, як вони б'ються, як українці борються, які вони титани. І це правда, абсолютно. Але і Європа, і весь світ мають розуміти і іншу правду, що українці, перш за все, люди. І ми майже 4 роки повномасштабного вторгнення стримуємо одну з найбільших армій світу. І ми тримаємо лінію фронту у кілька тисяч кілометрів. І наш народ щоночі переживає обстріли, ракетні атаки, удари балістики, удари шахедів. І наші люди щодня втрачають когось із своїх близьких. І наші люди дуже хочуть, аби ця війна закінчилась. Ми, звісно, сталеві, але будь-який, навіть найміцніший метал може не витримати. Не забувайте про це. Будьте з Україною, будьте з нашими людьми, а отже, будьте з гідністю і свободою. Дорогі українці, згадайте той перший день війни. Більшість з нас зробили вибір на користь України. Згадайте наші почуття тоді. А як це було? Було темно, гучно, важко, боляче, багатьом, страшно. Але ворог не побачив наші спини, що тікають. Він побачив наші очі повні готовності боротися за своє. І це і є гідність, це і є свобода. І це насправді найстрашніше, що тільки може бути для Росії – бачити єдність українців. Тоді наша єдність була спрямована на те, аби захистити від ворога наш дім. І зараз єдність також потрібна нам, як ніколи, аби у нашому домі був достойний мир. Я звертаюся зараз до всіх українців. Наші люди, громадяни, політики, всі. Треба зібратись, прийти в себе, припинити срач, припинити політичні ігрища. Держава має працювати, парламент воюючої країни має працювати об'єднано, уряд воюючої країни має працювати ефективно. І всі ми разом маємо не забувати і не плутати, хто саме є сьогодні ворогом України. Я пам'ятаю, як у перший день війни різні ходаки передавали мені різні плани, пункти, ультиматуми були щодо завершення війни. Казали або так, або ніяк. Або ви це підпишете, або вас просто ліквідують. І це замість вас вже підпише ВО президента України. Чим це закінчилось, відомо. Чимало з цих ходаків стали частиною обмінного фонду і відправились разом зі своїми пропозиціями, пунктами домой в родную гавань. Я не зрадив Україну тоді, я точно відчував за своїми плечима підтримку кожного з вас, кожного українця, українки, кожного солдата, кожного волонтера, кожного медика, дипломата, журналіста, всього нашого народу. Ми не зрадили Україну тоді, ми не зробимо цього зараз. І я точно знаю, що у цей справді один з найважчих моментів нашої історії. І я не один. Що українці вірять в свою державу, що ми єдині і в усіх форматах майбутніх зустрічей, дискусій, переговорів з партнерами мені буде набагато легше добиватися гідного миру для нас та переконувати їх на 100%, знаючи за мною народ України. Мільйони наших людей, які мають гідність, які борються за свободу і які заслужили на мир. Всі наші загиблі герої, які віддали за Україну життя, які зараз на небі і заслужили побачити звідти, що їхні діти та онуки будуть жити в гідному мирі. І цей мир буде достойний, дієвий, довготриваючий. Дорогі українці, наступний тиждень буде дуже непростим, насиченим на події. Ви дорослий, розумний, свідомий народ, який не раз це доводив. І який розуміє, що в цей час буде багато тиску політичного, інформаційного, різного, щоб послабити нас, щоб розсварити нас. Ворог не спить і робитиме все, аби у нас нічого не вийшло. Чи дамо їм це ми з вами зробити? Не маємо права. І у нас вийде. Бо ті, хто прагне нас знищити, погано нас знають, не розуміють, хто ми насправді, про що ми, за що ми, які ми люди. Ми недаремно відзначаємо на рівні державного свята День Гідності та Свободи. Це каже про те, ким ми є, які наші цінності. Ми будемо працювати на дипломатичному полі заради нашого миру. Ми маємо працювати єдино всередині України заради нашого миру, заради нашої гідності, заради нашої свободи. І я вірю, і я знаю, що я не один, зі мною наш народ, суспільство, воїни, партнери, союзники, усі наші люди гідні, вільні, єдині. З Днем Гідності та Свободи. Слава Україні!
And Heroam Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of 1367. And it's a speech that is setting the tone for the diplomatic stage that globally exists at the moment, where Ukraine is largely having to make a choice, whether to continue to fight the war without the United States or to accept the humiliating peace plan that has been presented by the United States with an ultimatum attached. But with that, folks, on that bit of a grim note for the day, it is time for us to move on into the second segment of the stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, is that an incredibly fun time. We always get to talk about all kinds of great and interesting stuff tonight. I'm sure that the tone of the stream tonight, and considering that it's not really the most happy-go-lucky show that we've ever run, at least we're trying to get through the news, but probably our question segment is going to be revolving around a lot of that bit of the doom and gloom that happened today. But still, nevertheless, I do have to tell y'all that we are always honored to be able to be the ones that get to say that we get to cover the news for all of y'all. We were honored honored when it was just a small number of a couple of hundred people live watching way back in the day, thousands of days ago. And nowadays, we still, with tens of thousands of people here every single night, I still have to say that we're entirely honored. I like to still think that we are still talking, or at least me personally, that was before Matthew even joined, to that small crowd of 4 people that were with us back then. I still like to think about that, but it's just now tens of thousands of people every night instead. We're still honored nonetheless. We also do have breaking news coming out of the United States at this moment. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so right now we are getting some breaking news. This breaking news is coming out of Los Angeles in the United States. Right now we're seeing in the port of Los Angeles, apparently there's a large fire or an explosion that's occurred on a container ship, and it looks like the container ship is on fire very, very badly. And at first it was reported that 6 people were unaccounted after this explosion occurred, but now it looks like they've accounted for all the crew members. But right now there is an ongoing, pretty large situation happening right now in the port of Los Angeles, and it appears to be quite a big one. And sadly, we can't show the video of it, though, because, of course, it is out of the United States, and people get very litigious about videos in the United States. So we can't show it for copyright reasons, but I can assure you a very, very large fire indeed right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
Pretty interesting event. This could impede the activities of the Port of Long Beach at the moment, so we'll have to see if we get any further developments out of the situation at the moment. But apparently at one of the container loading piers near to the loading cranes, one of the vessels has spontaneously caught fire. It appears that there was some sort of an electrical fire on ship, or an electrical explosion on ship that has caused significant damage to the vessel and appears to be burning through it. So we'll be trying to keep an eye on that. Unfortunately, we cannot show you all any of the footage due to it most likely being copyrighted, but it does appear to be a fairly significant ongoing development within the Port of Long Beach. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. Also, by the way, I just have to give the clarification here. This is happening in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles metro area, but the container port itself where this fire is happening is in the Port of Long Beach, which is the container port for the city of Los Angeles. So now that I got that clarification out of the way, so that way it didn't sound like Matthew was saying Los Angeles and I was saying a totally different place. They're one and the same place. It's just that Los Angeles port is called the Port of Long Beach because it's technically within the town of Long Beach in the Los Angeles metro area. But with that, I hope we addressed that well. And with that in mind, folks, we actually have another poll that Matthew has presented to all of y'all to get your opinions on how Zelensky is going to be handling the next week. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about this as well?
Also, by the way, I just want to point this out. If you are on Twitter, because by the way, we do run a pretty actually gotten to be a sizable Twitter page over there. It's where we source a lot of our news from. You might notice, click on the thing right there, Enforcer, where it says join March 2022. Click on that real quick on our Twitter profile right there, right in the middle. You might notice it says where the account is based in. It says the United States, because of course we are actually from the United States. It looks like Twitter has rolled out a feature now that shows you where every single account on the platform is based from. And it looks like a lot of these highly political accounts are based out of India that are involved in Republican and Democrat politics. Who would have guessed that? Foreign interference. Who would have guessed that at all? I've suspected that for a very long time. But it looks like some accounts have been ousted today. And I recommend that from this point forward, when you jump on Twitter and see people ranting and raving like lunatics about this side or another side, check about where they're based. Because if they're not based in the United States and they're trying to stir up trouble, that is probably a foreign influence operation. So that is quite interesting right there.
Matthew, can we find an example of one of these accounts?
Let's see here. Let's take a friendly one. Let's see here. Let's see. Let me go check this real quick and make sure it is working, because I'm going off of what I'm seeing here on Twitter. Let's go check. So go check out Clash Report, by the way. This is a friendly source, by the way, so we're not trying to pick on them or something, but just pick them just out of curiosity. See if it shows the country.
No.
Okay, this one's not showing it yet. Go pick Flytux Network. They're also another good source, by the way. I'm not picking on these people. We actually cite them quite a bit, but let's see. Okay, so on desktop, it's not showing it. That's kind of interesting. It's showing it on some platforms, but not all of them. It looks like desktop hadn't caught up yet.
Huh. That's interesting. Also, we have a great run-on relationship with Flytux Network. We actually talk with them off air a good bit in the DMs on Twitter. But very interesting. It isn't showing on my end the origin nationally of anyone on Twitter rather than ourselves. So interesting for that. But with that, I hope we address that well. It should be a feature that's rolling out on all platforms soon. So we'll hopefully see it on desktop here in the future. But anyways, with that, it's time for us folks to move on into all of those wonderful, wonderful polls. And Matthew, I understand that we still have that poll that we have to address. And what are people thinking about that?
All right. So the poll that we currently have says, how will Zelensky handle the next week? Because Thursday is the U.S. imposed deadline for the Ukrainians to accept the surrender plan. And Thursday is apparently the date they'll have to figure that out. So how's Zelensky going to handle that? 73% said he will refuse U.S. pressure, while 19% said he will play along for diplomacy, and 3% said he will agree to the surrender deal. And me personally, I think Zelensky will play along for diplomacy, but the only problem is this. If the U.S. is going to take such a hardline stance that they don't give Zelensky even a chance to play diplomacy, then Zelensky will either have to accept the peace deal, or he'll have to say, okay, goodbye to the United States, we're going to be on our own, and we'll have to wait and see if Europe helps us. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, and I'm going to be with the 19%. I think he will play along, and he'll hope for the best. And I think that's pretty much all he can do at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I would be with a 73%. I would hope he's going to refuse U.S. pressure throughout the next week. That would be the most appropriate action to take for Ukraine, and that would actually be the best thing to secure their own interests. Because unfortunately, the United States is not willing to secure their interests or ours at this point. So they're kind of on their own if the U.S. continues to pressure them like this and doesn't back off. So I hope that does address that the best we can, at least in our opinions. And with that, we are on into the questions at large. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping into our super chats tonight, right back into those questions right now. This one goes to none other than Krebs Cycle, and Krebs Cycle put in a very generous $50 support, and thank you very much, Krebs, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And he said, "I love the show and the common sense approach."
And thank you so much for loving the show and our common sense approach. I always try and make sure that we take a common sense approach, and it's much better, in my opinion, than the kind of approaches that you get from political people, because you never get a good approach from political people. You never do. I remember, just to bring up one, I'm not getting political here, but I remember this. I remember when everyone said they were going to release those files last year, and now this year the files aren't even real. And then people just take that at face value. Last year they were going to blow the lid on it. Everyone who supported that group, oh, they're going to blow the lid on it. This year, now it just doesn't even exist. It's a hoax, according to those folks, not even real. At least to some of them. Other people wouldn't buy that. But that's also what I've been saying, folks, like that for years on this channel. I've been saying that for years because I've been saying that about everything. You'll always see that the political party that gets in charge, they always do a 180 on most everything. And then the other party does a 180 on what they believe. So if, for example, if one party says, and they're in charge, that bananas are good, the party that is not in charge is going to say that bananas are bad. Then when the other party ends up winning an election and tossing the other party out, they're going to come in, and instead of saying bananas are bad, now bananas are good. And all their supporters are going to say that the bananas are now good. And then the party that just got ousted, they're going to say the bananas are bad and that they hate them. That's how it works. That's why I'm not a political person. Because it is just a shame, really, an absolute shame to get involved in politics and to waste your life going around and living in a nonsensical world that doesn't make any sense and having no common sense, no judgment. Might as well be a sheep. And then what's so silly about all these people is that they call themselves free thinkers. And I would say that anyone who calls themselves and goes out of their way to call themselves a free thinker is the very last thing closest to a free thinker. Those people don't think freely at all. They get told something and they follow along like cattle or sheep or any other animal that lives in the herd. I will tell you all this. If you ever go around someone and they tell you a free thinker, get ready to hear the most mainstream stuff from the left or the right that you could ever hear. It is guaranteed. I can promise you that. I will say this, folks. I'm not a free thinker. I just read stuff and it's a binary input and output. There's no free thinking involved. It's just that we don't end up falling within the left or the right trying to come up to those decisions. They are just decisions that we come up to nonetheless, and whoever's in charge, if they're wrong, they're wrong. That's how it's been since the start. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep up this kind of common sense approach. We wouldn't have been able to do it from the first day on to now. And it's really crazy to think, folks, that this kind of a mindset has survived on YouTube for 1,367 days. It's almost 4 years. It's getting really close to 4 years. Most YouTube channels generally only survive for about 3 years, crazily enough. Most of them die off after that, at least in terms of their relevance. Very few channels make it beyond that. We are making it on into our 4th year, stronger now this year than ever before, as a matter of fact. We're still growing in every metric, viewership, subscribership, and everything else in between. And we're still growing, and we are growing with this kind of mindset. And I think that really shows that there is a veracity, there is a huge appetite out there that is unfulfilled in people's minds, where they truly do want to hear someone call a spade a spade. If an action's good, it's good no matter who's in charge. If an action's bad, it's bad no matter who's in charge. But so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to none other than Chef Danny B. It is Chef. He is back once again, and he puts in a $75 support. And a huge shout out to you, good sir, Chef Danny, for that support once again, and it's good to see you. He said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here, and I took a Friday off. And the good thing about food vendors is I get a lot of free stuff, and they gave me WWE tickets, and it's definitely fun live.
Oh, that's pretty cool, and really cool to hear about that, Chef Danny B. That's really neat, and really cool to hear that you took a Friday off. Hey! And we're happy to have you here with us tonight, and I hope that it was fun watching that WWE event. And also, on top of that, I hope that you're doing well, Chef of the LSA, out there in Denver, Colorado. That's not too far from us now, actually. That is about 360 miles away or so, probably more so like 370 from center to center. Yeah, it's 370. But that's a lot closer than it used to be, because back in Birmingham, Alabama, we were actually 1,100 miles away from Denver, Colorado. So we're a lot closer to possibly getting some good eats someday from you, the Chef of the LSA. And so a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh, and also, by the way, you know how I was mentioning with the Twitter thing, they were showing the location of accounts and stuff like that. At least according to some of the larger like news Twitter accounts, it looks like Twitter paused the feature for some unknown reason. So I don't know why they would pause it after they literally just rolled it out, but apparently that's why we couldn't see it. Is because they literally just paused it as we were trying to look at it.
You know why? You know why? I can tell you why. The guy who made that decision, like, I'm just going to say my theory. This is my theory, folks. This isn't fact, but I'll tell you, in my opinion, why that's the case. They thought that if they did that, all of their opposition politically on Twitter was going to be shown to be foreign nationals, and then they did it, and it turns out everyone involved in the political sphere with a major account, including on their side, is a foreign national that's not in the United States. So then they rolled it right back and paused it, most likely indefinitely, so that way everyone on the left and the right can't see that they're getting all of their political talking points on Twitter from folks who live in India or somewhere else, like I don't know, Israel or someplace like that. So that's generally why they probably did that, I would assume. So with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least my opinion, and that's my opinion as to why they would do that. But what do you think, Matthew?
Honestly, like for the little while it was on there for a second, which I think they're going to turn it back on. I think maybe they're like trying to fix some glitches or something with it. But it was interesting though. A lot of these accounts are from India, and it seems like a lot of propaganda outsourcing is being outsourced to India now, which apparently that's a whole industry. Apparently, is like outsourcing propaganda. So, for example, a lot of Russian bots are actually based out of India. Funny enough, and it seems like India is more than willing to take that on and do that on their behalf. And they're not the only country doing it. Like, for example, a lot of Iran accounts that were monitoring the Iran situation, they're actually based in India too, which is kind of fascinating. So also I see some are saying some will be from Pakistan, and that's true as well. And it seems like India and Pakistan seem to be like the kings of like propaganda proxy accounts. I don't know how they came to be that way, but it seems like that is the case, at least for right now.
Man, you know, I remember that one account. I forgot their name, but it was the one who I think was like LARPing as a Polish person, and then they were outed as an Indian, and then they were like, I'm still with this whole philosophy. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, you know, it's I gotta say, folks, that's why I don't really take my political opinions from the internet, or any political opinion at all. I don't take a political opinion from anywhere. I mean, if someone came up to me and told me if I wanted to hear the truth, I'd tell them I'd give a damn. Like, that's my honest output on politics. But outside of that, that's why I also don't get my foreign policy opinions, or any opinions for that matter, from the internet. is because you don't even know who the hell that is on the internet. I mean, the high chances are, like, whoever is and this is how it works, folks, on Twitter. You will have like an account called Ultra MAGA Truther, and they're from India, and then you also have another account called the Liberal Voice, and it's also from India, and they're just paying these people, or someone else is paying them to just stir up people in the United States and get something going, like get people angry, get them violent, and get them beating each other up. That's what they do. And that's what the Chinese and the Russians are doing. People just don't realize that, probably never will, but Russia and China pay people in India to make these accounts to ramp up the political propaganda in the United States and pretty much have people tearing the America apart from within, because they found out that that's the easiest way to do it. The army already knows that China's doing that. There's a whole thing that they wrote in an unclassified ATP about how China uses social media to manipulate and radicalize people in America just for the sake of causing chaos and disruptions within the United States. The Russians are doing the same, and hell, I'd be honest with y'all, I would actually put money on it. The Indian government's probably involved in that as well, in sponsoring some of these bot accounts and paying for their operations to also cause disruptions in the Western world, in the United States and elsewhere. I would highly assume that.
Yeah, probably so, honestly. Also, a lot of people ask all the time, they say, how can you identify a bot? Because a lot of people say, are bots just people saying stuff you don't like, or is there some way to identify them? The way I typically identify them across the board, like across Twitter and pretty much every other platform out there, the general rule is if it's a newer account that appears to be extremely opinionated, like, for example, on a certain thing, especially politics, and they put like all these slogans in their description, that's a very large sign that it's a bot. Also, if they only appear to have like very generic posts and only a small amount of them, that's another sign it's a bot as well. And also, obviously, if it says, like, for example, if it's something involving U.S. politics and the account says from India, that's likely a bot, because like, why would an Indian national be taking a political side in the United States and acting like they're a domestic citizen unless they're a propagandist bot? So it's pretty easy to me to spot that. But then again, I grew up with the computers and stuff like that. I know some people aren't like totally versed in it like that, but that's generally how I identify them most of the time.
And also, it's so funny on top of that, because most of these accounts, you know what's so funny, folks, is that they'll do something, like they'll pull a clip of like a homeless guy like attacking someone in a city. Happens everywhere in the world, mind you all. And then they'll sit there and say, America's collapsing. And they like start this doomsday belief in America that America is falling. Like it hasn't always been like this in America, and it hasn't always been like this around the rest of the world. You know, like they never tell you this, but in Russia, even still to this day, the mafia runs a lot of the big cities in Russia, and they'll just kill you if you step out of line. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that pretty much the law doesn't exist in Russia, because the Russian government hardly controls most cities east of the Urals. And they also won't tell you that even if the law is there, they'll just screw you over anyways, directly through the law. The government will, because they don't give a damn. They don't tell you that side of things. And they don't tell you that in India, it's a festering pile of garbage, because they don't have any public sanitation whatsoever. So the garbage literally piles up year over year. You're pretty much walking on garbage, several feet of it in most places, within the northern part of the country especially. They don't tell you that. And they also don't tell you about China, that most of the people living in China aren't living in those glitzy skyscrapers with the LEDs that light up on the sides. Most Chinese people are living in 1960s era apartments that are condemned and filled with mold. They don't tell you all that stuff, because that stuff wouldn't be too good. They have you focusing internally on something that happens here and there in the United States, that happens everywhere in the world, like, you know, homeless people attacking folks, and then they tell you that the whole country's falling apart because something happened in Seattle. And, you know, and I'll tell you all this. This is something so stupid to me with how people talk about this. People will say the whole country is falling apart, but they'll live in a place like Salt Lake City, where it's perfect. Like I'm in Salt Lake City now, along with Matthew. We moved here from Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Alabama was so dangerous that if you ever went downtown, it was a high chance you're going to get shot and stabbed. You can go into downtown Salt Lake City, and the chances of that are extremely low compared to what they were in Salt Lake. How do I know? Hell, I walked around the downtown. I went through the downtown. Do you know what kind of people were walking around down there? Guys in business suits. You know who's walking around in downtown Birmingham? Dudes that are wearing clothes that haven't been washed in 5 months, and they got a gun in their waistband of their sweatpants that they're wearing. That's the kind of people down in downtown Birmingham, and that's the kind of people in downtown Salt Lake. Like, you know, and then something will happen in Birmingham. Like some guy will get shot, or there will be like a mass shooting or something like there was at 5 Points a while ago, and then the people in Salt Lake City or in New York City or elsewhere, they'll say the country's falling apart because 2,000 miles away in a city they've never even been in, someone got shot. It's like, yeah, crime happens. It's like that happens all over. Like, if we wanted to pay attention to Russia or China, there's crime that happens all over there too. They just make sure that you never hear about it. In the meantime, though, they take advantage of our free speech here in the United States to absolutely rile people up and get them going against each other all the time. It's insanity, really. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And I saw someone say, didn't someone get shot in Utah? Well, yeah, but didn't the president get shot in Dallas? I mean, like, what point is that? I mean, like high profile assassinations can happen anywhere in America. Like, hell, Abraham Lincoln got shot in Ford's Theater just a couple of blocks down from the White House in the Capitol. Does that mean that Washington, D.C. is an extremely dangerous place all over? Like near Ford's Theater now? No. Like, assassinations can happen anywhere. That has nothing to do with the standard of crime. I mean, no assassination has ever happened in Birmingham of a high-profile person that's known nationally. Yet Birmingham, Alabama is far more dangerous than Salt Lake City, metro area, and Dallas combined, by the crime statistics even. So, that's a really hard one to say, because that's like, if I went to, what's the safest country in the world? If I went to Denmark, and I was stabbed and killed in Denmark, and you all heard about it, and for some reason it made national news, which it wasn't. But if it did, that doesn't mean that Denmark's a wildly dangerous place. That means I was an unlucky statistic in Denmark and got killed and was one of the very few that ever would have. But that doesn't mean that the nation of Denmark is now a crime-ridden hellhole like O-Block in Chicago. Like, that's apples and oranges right there. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving on to our next super chat here. This one's going to go to none other than, guess who? It's going to Mark Ead, and Mark puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Mark, for that 50 right there, and we do appreciate that. He said, send it, fellows, from New Zealand and LSA.
Hey, and a big shout out to New Zealand. Really cool to hear from y'all down there on the North Island and South Island. And I got to give y'all a huge thanks down there for continuing to support this channel and watching it a great deal. Y'all are actually a huge part of the channel's viewership, as a matter of fact. Let me tell y'all how big of a piece of the viewership y'all are. Let's go to geography. Ah, yes. The United States, Canada, the UK, Australia, and Germany are our 5 largest viewership categories over the past month. The Netherlands is actually 6th place. Sweden is number 7, and New Zealand is number 8. Really interesting. It's very interesting, folks, because a lot of Germanic language countries, Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden, are 5, 6, and 7 on the graph. And another thing that's interesting is that the share of German viewers that we have has actually dropped, because Germany used to be, for most of the channel's history, I think the 3rd largest viewership group behind the United States and the UK. And now it's number 5, so most of our audience is English speaking. Crazily enough, folks, 65% of our audience in the last month alone is from the United States, which is pretty big. I mean, that's actually huge. Let's look at the lifetime of the channel now. Let's take a look. Oh, so the lifetime of the channel, the U.S. only makes 55% of the viewership. And in the last, let's see, dang, dude, at some point, I don't know when, at some point, we started to get dominated by an American audience. And I'll show y'all here this on screen. Very rare look behind the scenes in our analytics. But this is our viewership over the past 365 days. And crazily enough, while Americans only make up 55% of our viewership over the whole of the channel's history, in the last year, Americans made up 63% of our viewership.
I can tell you exactly why that is, too, because what was one thing that changed in America? Ukraine started getting supported shortly after this current president took office, and there was that whole little kerfluffle, whatever you want to call it, a little bit of a circus that went on right there with supporting Ukraine. Right after that, Ukraine got a lot of support, and then the public opinion for a certain major political party started changing to be pro-Ukraine. So I think that might explain it.
Yeah, that might actually explain it. And let's see here. Let me go to the lifetime again. Lifetime. Germany has now fallen to number 5 solidly. It used to be number 3. But our second largest viewership here on the channel is Canada. Our third largest is Britain. And our fourth largest is Australia. So pretty much most of the major English-speaking countries make up the large majority of our viewership. And then from there, it's the Northern European countries of well, not really Northern European, but Central and Northern European, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and then New Zealand. And crazily enough, right below New Zealand for the lifetime number is the Philippines. Which is quite interesting to think that they make up that large of a number. And over the past 90 days, the Philippines has dropped down significantly, and it's mostly Northern European countries, Central European countries, and the major English-speaking countries that make up the majority of our viewership here on the channel. So, very interesting, honestly, to look at that. And also, I think they break it down by city. Yeah, here we go. Let's look at the top cities over the last 90 days. New York is number 1.
New York?
Yeah.
Wow, we got the Big Apple coming in here. I tell you what, look at that Big Apple.
And then Los Angeles, California.
Los Angeles.
And then Chicago. Hey, big shout out to Oblak, the poison Oblak. Oh man,
that explains why we get so much pushback when we make fun of Chicago.
Don't you dare, man! And then London is number 4. Actually, London is neck and neck with Chicago. Actually, London could easily be number 3. And then Sydney is 5th. Let's see, is Salt Lake City on the list? I'm wondering. Toronto, Houston, Seattle. Seattle's on up there. So is Toronto. Dallas, Las Vegas. Atlanta, Georgia. Big shout out to the folks in Atlanta. Denver, Colorado. Big shout out to the folks in Denver. Let's see here. Let's see. Nashville, Boston. Man, Salt Lake City looks like it would rank. Salt Lake City.
It is.
Right here.
0.2%.
Man, Salt Lake City's viewership is as low as Kansas City and also Fort Worth, Texas. So interesting enough, not a lot of people watch The Enforcer here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, we're getting no love from Louisville, Kentucky. Like, no love at all.
And Stockholm, crazily enough.
Well, they still have that syndrome going on and stuff like that. They're still trying to get over it.
Yeah, that's true. They have a hard time with that sometimes. What other interesting cities? Detroit, Michigan. Oh my God, Detroit, Michigan has more viewership on our channel than Salt Lake. That's crazy. Let's see. Portland, Oregon. Look at that. And San Diego and Miami. And Orlando and Miami have the same number nearly. It's only 1,000 off. Let's see. Philadelphia. Mostly American cities. Pretty much all the major cities that watch are American. But there are some of the top, London and Sydney, that actually are not from the United States. They're pretty cool. Also, I wonder. Let's see. Let's look at the viewer age. Ah, yes. Look at that. Yeah, actually, this has been evening out a lot compared to the average historically. This is the average historically. And over the past 28 days, it's more so looking like this. So we're having a more even spread amongst most age demographics, which is pretty cool. And
yeah, we're getting a lot of youngins joining the channel these days because our demographics have always skewed to the 50 and above demographic usually. So it seems like the 20 and 30 category is really going up.
Yeah, it really does look like it. Also, only 8.7% of our viewership are women. The rest are men. Let's see here. And
we lost them too. We used to have 10%. Looks like it's gone down. They've run off.
Man, they're running away. They're running away in droves. Let's see here. Let's see. Oh, geez. Anything else that's interesting? Traffic source. Now that actually would be an interesting one. But we'll save that for another time. Anyways, folks, an interesting look into the audience there. And a big shout out to the folks in Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago, London, and Sydney. If you're watching tonight, you make up a large part of the percentage of our viewership on a city basis. But with that, it's time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, so with that, we're jumping into our next super chat here, which goes to none other than Blind Man. And Blind Man puts in a $50 support. And a big thanks to you, good sir, Mr. Blind Man, for seeing what you see in this channel right here, because we do appreciate that very much. And he put in that 50, of course, and said, hello, and LSA. And I read an article from 16 hours ago of the 28-point plan with the rat, stating that Russia won't abide by the plan, and that the only way to assure peace is full acceptance of the original war goals, and calling the plan an extended ceasefire.
Yeah, well, actually, I've heard that as well from the Russians, and Putin made that clear today as well. that they are pretty much only going to accept their terms and their terms only, or they're just going to keep the war going, which is basically what the U.S. is working off of at this point. So I would have to say, to be entirely honest with you, I'm not really that happy with it, you know? And I would say that that's very disappointing that we're even trying to negotiate with these people, considering that they're still that diehard on getting their way and their way only. And so I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a super chat from Live Animal who put in a 50 as well. And a huge shout out to you, Live Animal, for that support. And they said, keep doing the amazing work.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and we sure will. We sure will. And a huge thanks to you so much once again for the massive support and helping this channel to keep rolling, because that support helps us to be able to keep doing the work we do every day. So a huge thanks once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $50 support from S. Tadic, and they put in a $50 donation, and I just now got what their name says. It's ecstatic. But thank you very much for that support, by the way, and we do appreciate that. They said, just showing my appreciation, and please pull a question from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for showing your appreciation. You can just show your appreciation by saying thanks. That's going above and beyond appreciation. That's helping us to keep the thing rolling for a load of other people to appreciate it. So I thank you massively for that. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to that live chat. What do we got, Matthew?
Also, by the way, before we grab the live chat for Static, one thing that's fascinating is even though we only have about 9% women audience watching, the wild part is the women are the most vocal in the chat, by the way. Like, they're the ones who interact the most in the live chat. Like, as you can see right now, they're the ones who interact the most. Honestly, like the 8% women, I think I talked to them the most actually in the live chat out of everybody on the show. I think the male viewership is generally more of the silent watchers. And obviously, we have a lot of males like chatting right now in the live chat. But it's really interesting to me. A lot of interaction right there, which is fascinating. And also, we're glad to have the 9%. We're glad to have the 9. It used to be 10%, but it's actually 9% now. I don't know why. Why we lose that 1%? Come back. But anyways, the live chat question here goes to none other than Dave Bryson, who said, "Why haven't Ukraine targeted the Crimean bridge?"
Generally, it's no longer a strategic target serious enough to be able to hit it. That's really the honest answer. So I hope that does address that live chat the best we can. And also, folks, to give you all an idea of how much people talk, because some people always think that we have the ability to read and respond to everyone's message because they don't think there's a lot coming through. This is last night's show. I'm going to show you all what last night was like. Last night, there was 40,440 live chat engagements, which means any kind of interaction with a live chat. 23,000 of those were live chat messages, like the ones y'all are putting in right now. And 17,000 of those were reactions to stuff we said. So that should give y'all a little bit of an idea of how many people talk. So on an average, considering that last night was 3 hours and 44 minutes, so we take, let's see, 3 times 60 plus 44, that's 224, and then we take 23,222 divided by 244. That means that on average, every single minute on this channel during the whole show, there is about 95 chats coming in a minute, which means that we're getting more than one a second. So that's actually quite a large number of people who talk all through the night. And you can see that sometimes it's huge. Like in some minutes of the show, it can get up to something like 900 chats in a minute. So y'all can see why we unfortunately don't really get to talk to everyone, because there's so many people who are talking, and a lot of people are always saying interesting stuff. But unfortunately, there's so many people saying interesting stuff, we have to be very picky with what we choose, or very seldom in the amount of people we actually get to address. So
actually, anybody that tags me in the live chat, pretty much 99.9% of the time, if you tag me in the live chat and say something, I pretty much always respond to it, pretty much all the time. So that's the interesting thing about our channel. Some channels you can go to, you put in a chat, you address it to like one of the hosts or a mod or whatever, and you just get ignored unless it's something they want to address. We address everything. And also, if you throw in a live chat question, I throw it into our spreadsheet, and we try to get to as many of them as we can every single night. So that's one thing we've emphasized the entire time, was making sure that we interact with the folks in the live chat, not just ignore people that are watching the channel every single night, because I've been on channels where they ignore people and they just sort of like go in their own lane and stuff like that and really just ignore the audience, which to me I find a little bit weird because it's like without the audience you wouldn't have a show. So you could show a little bit of appreciation by at least giving some recognition to the folks talking to you. But I guess not everybody can do that. That's what makes us unique, I guess you could say.
It does make us unique. And I do see every chat that comes in, though, folks. Like the whole time I'm talking on air, I'm actually glancing over to the chat. I don't miss a single message. I just never get to really respond to any of them. Like John Garner, you do always respond. Thanks, Margaret Hemsley. That's why I come in late. I can see why the chat's not going so fast. Monster Lab, that's too bad. I understand, though. As Tactic, Arby's! like I see it all. Like I see every single live chat that comes in. Unfortunately, though, because I'm having to talk, I don't have the ability to talk and type because that would be quite a lot to do, especially over a long-term show, like 3.5 hours. So that's why I never really get to respond to anyone. So I absolutely burn down the phone line in the first 10 minutes of the show, typing hello, howdy, LSA, or something along those lines to every single person I can in the first few minutes when the intro is running. So I get to say hello to at least some of the folks who are watching, or get on early enough to be able to have me say hello to them. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Slagoy the Sauce, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Slagoy the Sauce, for that very generous support. And they said, I voted for him 3 times, but the 28-point plan is insane. And that's what that, well, me personally, I'm not getting into who I voted for or nothing like that. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even vote in the last election. I'll just say that up front. But just objectively speaking, the 28-point plan is a joke, and it's proven by the condemnation from both sides. It's proven by that. So I'm glad to see that. I'm still a little iffy about how that whole situation is going with politics. Still a little iffy on it, but at least they can agree on that, at least. But Enforcer, what say you?
I have to agree with Matthew on that one. I'm not going to get into the whole election side of things, how we vote. Not saying this rudely, but we like to keep that to ourselves because you can. But beyond that, I'd have to say that it's good to see that practically everyone in the country is against this. Also, if y'all haven't heard, just a little side note there, one of the folks that was endorsed is resigning. I think that was happening today. So kind of showing that it's kind of a little hard to stay in with the crowd there on that one. Honestly, folks, I'll just be honest with y'all. Nobody really stays in the guy's good graces for that long, even like the people who were with him. We know that because one of our senators from our state ended up being his first attorney general, and he got in a fight with him and destroyed his whole career within a year of becoming the attorney general. So, that was something that kind of taught us, probably best to stay away from him. Like, I'll be honest with y'all, folks, just to be upfront. If this president of the United States ever told us, "Would you like to be a foreign policy advisor?" I'd say hell no, because he'd just destroy your life within about 6 months to a year because he got tired of you or your usefulness has been expended. So he'll just destroy the rest of your life, and then you're basically stuck living with the burn that he pretty much just dissed you in front of the whole country, and that's the end of pretty much the end of your existence. You won't ever really get a job at that point. People will be harassing you the rest of your life. That's not worth it at all, especially when you're being asked to help the guy out and then he does that to you anyway. So anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least best I can, in my opinion. Now, if anyone else asked me if I would like to be a foreign policy advisor, I'd probably say sure, but it kind of depends on if they listen to the advice, because if they're not listening to the advice, what's the point even? Like, even if you're getting paid, what would be the point of that job? I don't know. So,
Paid. They'd be getting paid.
They would be getting paid?
Yeah, I mean that's all they care about is getting paid. That's simply it. Because any self-respecting professional, they're not going to go into an environment where their words aren't even appreciated or even heard at all, and simply show up for a paycheck. That's not a self-respecting professional. That's just somebody collecting a paycheck or trying to at least get close to power so they can have some bragging rights or something.
Yeah, I would assume so. A lot of people up there, they seem like they like the money. And I just don't really understand that, folks, because the truth is, folks, is that having money doesn't really mean a lot when you have money. Because Matthew and me, just to tell you all a little bit about how we grew up, we didn't grow up in what I would call a middle class family, especially for Alabama. I would say that we grew up in a higher class family. And growing up in a higher class family, at least in our personal experience, you really find out that the money honestly adds more headaches to your life than anything, really. I mean, like it destroys relationships with family members because they get greedy. Like it's a whole thing. It's not a good kind of an existence. It's really better to be more so, if you can, somewhere in the middle. You don't want to be struggling to pay your bills, but at the same time, you don't want to be so rich that, you have a couple of yachts or something like that, because then you got a whole other can of worms of problems that is as bad as having no money. So I would honestly say, folks, the best thing to do is try and shoot for somewhere in the middle, like upper middle class. That's a pretty good spot to be in if you can get there. That would be my personal 2 cents on it. But that's coming from our experience. A lot of people would say different. Like Jeremy, he said, "LMAO, you tripping? You think we are? You think I am? But wait until you eventually got there and you lived that, and then you would see that that's sure as hell not worth it."
The people with wealth, and this isn't everybody. Like, obviously, you can't generalize a whole category of people because everybody's different. But on the whole, like for the most common thing I've seen, people that have the most money are the most unhappy people you'll ever meet in your life. For whatever reason, when you get money, it goes to most people's heads. Like it does it to a lot of people, even the people that swear it would never do anything to them. It changes them a little bit. And after a while, they start becoming reclusive. They start isolating themselves. All of a sudden, they start getting a superiority complex. And then they start losing all their humanity on top of that. And also, they don't have to be in the rat race anymore. So they get to exclude themselves from it and look at it from a third person perspective, from like a observer standpoint. And that really works on the mind in a very bad way. It starts making people less human than they previously were. And I think that's why you see like a lot of rich people that people look at them and like, oh, I want to be like that. They have a Ferrari, they have a mansion, they have this. Those people would probably love to go back to being just normal. They probably would, and some of them actually say that and they're honest, and some don't.
And also another thing, folks, that people don't tell you when you're kind of riding high on the hog compared to everyone else in an area, everyone hates you. Like, even for no reason. People just hate you. Like, that's how it is. If you ever end up becoming, if you ever are really, because we never became successful, like not to that degree, but if you are the kid or like a child of someone who is successful and they're more successful than the people in the surrounding area, literally everybody hates you. Like for no reason. Like, you can be as nice as you can try and do right by everyone, they will still hate you. Just because your parents had money, even though you're just living a life like everyone else, and that's something that people don't tell you about. And a lot of people would say, I wouldn't care about that because, I'm sitting here and I would rather have money than none. But once you start to go through that and everyone is absolutely dissing on you and hating on you for no reason, rather than your parents had money, that gets old. Like, that gets old to the point it's like, I would rather just, be in the crowd, like in the middle class or anything like that, because at least you get to talk to people and socialize with them without them ostracizing you just because there's some sort of material object floating around that they don't have. Like, that's honestly.
Well, on the other hand, though, if you're like, for example, piss poor broke and on a hard financial time, that's also not good either. That's arguably worse than having too much wealth and you're miserable. That's definitely worse, because then you're struggling to simply get the basics. Like, it's just good to be in between the two, really. Like, if it's possible. These days it's not really possible, because the way it works these days in this economy, you're either wealthy or you're poor. There's barely a middle class anymore. I think most people have seen that. The middle class is like an old concept at this point. So you either have some money or you don't have some money, which is not great, because there used to be like a good medium right in the middle that seems to not exist anymore. So that doesn't lead to anything good either. At least a lot of unhappy people across the board.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like I would say, like, a lot of people, like, having no money sucks. I would agree with you. Yeah, having no money absolutely sucks. That's terrible. But at the same time, having a lot of money can also suck a great deal as well. Like, a whole load of, being high class to the point that you're rolling high on the hog, that can suck as well greatly. And also another thing is that while everyone else hates you from the middle class and the lower classes, they also don't tell you that all the other high class people hate you as well, because most of them are vanity driven, so they look at you as competition or some sort of a rival just because you're there. So they don't like you either. So you're basically you're basically high on a pedestal, but you're all alone and there's no one to talk to at all. So you're pretty much ostracized from everyone. And that's not a good, like, that's not really a good position to be in either, because that really ends up wearing you down, because it's like, damn, I just kind of want to have like some friends and be normal, but nobody will treat you that way. And the rich people, folks, good gracious. Like, a lot of the rumors that you'll hear about most rich people, there is exceptions to it, of course, but it is absolutely true. Rich people do not look at relationships as relationships like having a friend to go have fun with. They look at you as an asset to use, and once you're used up, you're expended. And thrown away, and that's the end of the relationship. That's how they look at relationships. It's a crazy sort of a thing. Crazy, really. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Also, I see people saying having no money sucks a lot more. Yeah, I would agree. But also having a great deal of money and being rich, like, filthy rich, I would also say that really sucks. Not as much as having no money, obviously, but that also sucks a lot in its own ways, and it's not really desirable, honestly, in my personal opinion. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it.
Also, by the way, somebody, actually a couple of people said in the chat, they said, I'm poor and I'm also a reclusive. Well, it happens. I mean, honestly, like, I could say, even if like all of a sudden, like one day, like we like, let's say this thing grows into like a proper like news channel on a network or something, and it becomes really successful or something, and then all of a sudden, oh, Matt can buy a Ferrari now. Honestly, I probably wouldn't be the most like super sociable person then either, to be honest. Like, your personality doesn't change like dramatically, but there are certain things though that do change, like like your empathy toward people and things like that starts waning, I guess. Because also, it is true what the enforcer's saying. People really just don't like people with money, but sometimes for like a valid reason, and sometimes not for a valid reason. But it's just, yeah, your core personality is not going to change though. If you're an introvert, you're not going to suddenly start becoming super sociable or something. And if you're an extrovert, you're not going to start being super quiet either.
I'll just be honest with y'all, for my personal opinion, and I know people will disagree with this, I'm shooting for my life to be upper middle class and to just save up for retirement. That's it. I don't want to be a multimillionaire or a billionaire. It's not worth it in the end. And then and also, there's just a million other things that no one thinks about. Like, if you're a multi-billionaire and you get married and you have kids, you've got to always worry about your kids getting taken hostage from someone and being held for ransom. That's a huge deal that every single billionaire and multimillionaire has to worry about, because there's a lot of people out there who know, if I can kidnap that kid, I can get myself a good bit of money off of these people. I can milk them dry for ransom. That's happened a great deal. That's why all of these people have to have security details, because their kids could get kidnapped, or they could get shot, or they could get robbed, and so on and so forth. So basically, at that point, all of society that isn't in the top 1% with you is practically your enemy. You have to look at everyone as a potential target, not target, but a potential attacker or something along those lines. It's not a good existence. It becomes animalistic at that level. So it's better just to be in the upper middle class. That's my personal opinion. No one has to take my word for that. You can try and work really hard until you're one of the top 1% or you're well off and filthy rich. But me personally, I'm just not really shooting for that. I like getting around normal folks and getting to talk to folks and have some camaraderie, instead of coming down from a super yacht on a private jet and then pretending like I'm one of the people. That's something I just don't really like too much as an idea. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next one here, our next super chat. This one is going to go to none other than Danny B once again. And he throws in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Danny, for that support as well. We do appreciate that very, very much. And Danny said, shifting again, 303 Denver, baby. But I did have a lunch date today, and it went pretty good. And LLT, LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Chef Danny B. And it's great to hear that you had a great day. It's wonderful to hear. And I love to hear that you had a great day at the WWE event, Chef Danny B of the LSA. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I saw someone say, what are you talking about? There's millionaires walking around in Walmart every day. I said like tens of millions and hundreds of millions, not like just a couple of million. I mean, there's loads of people with like, huh?
What millionaire billionaires were walking around Walmart? Somebody name one of them.
Well, obviously, dude, you don't have to name them. But Yeah, I like which person with hundreds of millions of dollars is wandering around Walmart with a shopping cart? I'll wait for the answer. I cannot think of one. The only guy I can think of would be maybe Warren Buffett. But Warren Buffett is a like once in a generational sort of an exception to the norm with how he does stuff. Like Warren Buffett's very special in that way. Warren Buffett is a cool dude. He didn't let the money go to his head, and he doesn't really use any of the money. Really cool dude for that, and I actually respect him for that kind of philosophy. So
Who, Warren Buffett?
yeah, huge respect to Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett's a cool guy.
Yeah, he's an interesting fella. He's an interesting fella. Don't be mistaken though. I mean, Warren. I would imagine. I don't know. I obviously don't know him personally, but I would imagine he's got some killer instincts in him. Because here's my theory, folks. People that get ultra wealthy or very wealthy, they didn't get there by being super generous. Because if you're generous, you tend to not just like stack it up and keep it for yourself. You tend to share it a little bit. Not saying that's what they should do. It's just what they tend to do. That's how they get mega wealthy. So they're usually very smart. They make the hard decisions, and they tend to stack it up and keep it to themselves. That's how they get wealthy in the first place. So that's just my theory.
Yeah, like that, I would have to generally agree with that. But that's what I'd personally say. That's what I'd say. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to go to none other than Slagoida Sauce once again, who puts in the 50. And thank you very much, Slagoida Sauce, for that support yet again. They said, I understand being weary about him. I started to lose confidence a little while back when there was a little spat with a fella named Musk.
Oh yeah, they're all back together again, Toad and Frog together again. So, apparently the Tesla dealerships will be defended like Fort Knox again, I'm guessing. I don't know. But beyond that, I do thank you massively for the support. I would have to say that going into this, and this is what political people will never give you credit for this stuff these days, and it's exhausting even trying to appeal to this people, and we're not. But at the beginning of the current president's term, I actually had some decently high hopes because I was thinking in the when that election was coming around last year, no matter who gets elected, it can't be as bad as the current president. That was my outlook, and I was sorely proven wrong this year. Completely. This is actually worse than the last president, which is pretty damn hard to pull off because he was at the rock bottom on foreign policy that has ever been seen, and somehow this guy is digging a ditch even deeper. Don't know how. But generally been losing faith for the foreign policy stuff that's been going on for the year. We've given 11 months at this point of a lot of leeway and a lot of slack on a lot of stupid foreign policy decisions, and at this point my slack is worn out. This guy has no clue what he's doing in foreign policy, and he's terrible at it, really. And all of his advisors and members of the cabinet are also terrible at this as well. I mean, they're horrendous, really. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Danny. This is our other Danny, not the chef Danny, but the other Danny. And thank you very much, other Danny, for that $35 support, and we do appreciate that very much. Dusty again. But Danny said, the rumors today will have it that China don't want Ukraine to lose either and might support Ukraine if this latest peace deal is put forward. And thoughts. And great stream, guys. And keep it up. And LT, LSA.
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you for enjoying the stream. I don't know about that one because we generally know that the Chinese have been supporting the Russians a good deal through the war through multiple different means. So I would doubt that they would also back the Ukrainians as well. So I'd say it's a little unlikely that that would happen. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, and we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Just a Plumber, who puts in a 25. And Just a Plumber said, long time no super chat, and heading to bed, and I'll listen in the morning. And LLT, LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And I hope that you're enjoying this when you wake up tomorrow in the morning. We're massively appreciative of your support and helping this channel to keep rolling, because folks like you have made this thing possible for a while and help us to continue to make this thing possible well into the future. So huge thanks once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 super chat from none other than John Garner. And thank you very much, John, once again, for that support. And he said hello to everyone.
And hello to you, John Garner. And hello to everyone. I hope y'all are still doing well tonight. And I thank you greatly for the support, John Garner, because you're helping us to have everyone here tonight so that way we can say hello to them all. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to P Daddy. That was close to another name there. 333, who puts in a 20. And they said, thank you for reading the caption. I can only listen.
And no problem at all. It was so quiet too. I was like, dang, you can't even hear them. So then I read it. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support, and thank you for enjoying that. I like to read off the subtitles from here to there because it makes it very clear for folks to hear exactly what someone's saying. So a huge thanks once again, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, real quick point here. Someone said being wealthy doesn't necessarily mean intelligent. And I agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes being wealthy simply means they made the hard decisions that other people weren't willing to make. Like, for example, if it meant screwing over another person to get ahead, that wealthy person was willing to make that decision versus the other person that may have had more morality to their decision making. So the wealthy person got rich and the moral person did not get rich. Is that fair? No, but sometimes that's the way it works in a capitalist society. Sometimes the person that's immoral becomes wealthy, and the person that was moral ends up getting shafted. It's not fair, like I said, but sometimes that's the way it works. But there are legit intelligent people, though, that are wealthy. But for example, I mean, Albert Einstein was extremely intelligent. Was he wealthy? Not really. So, I mean, that sort of shows you as well. I think that fellow who passed away, who was the business partner of Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, he actually said that in one of those press conferences. He said, how come Albert Einstein was poorer than me, but he was obviously a lot smarter? And that was honestly a good point.
Yeah, it really was a good point. And also, I see. I would have to add in my 2 cents. A lot of people who have doctorates are very stupid people. A lot of people who have doctorates are also really smart people. And then a lot of people who have high school educations are really stupid people. And a lot of people who have high school education are really smart people too. And that goes for the rich and the poor and everything else in between. You really have to judge someone not off of their degrees or how much money they have. It's really more so off of measuring them as a person. Are they stupid or are they not? And usually the answers are across the board. There are a lot, like this is what's crazy, folks. There are a lot of doctors out there in the medical industry that are practically quacks. And there's a lot of attorneys that hardly are able to do their job to the point they're conducting malpractice all the time, which is pretty much being a quack in the legal world. And then there's loads of people like that in every industry, in every single job field. And you would think that doctors and lawyers, because of all the schooling that they had to go through, they wouldn't mess up, but they mess up a great deal. Medical malpractice and attorney malpractice cases are some of the heaviest hitting, at least with the financial payouts that come out if malpractice is proven in any way. And it happens a great deal. And you can find that anywhere. You can find that in a basic low-level job like at McDonald's. Like you would sit there and think, nobody can mess up a McDonald's job. And then there will be people down there that will mess that up quite easy and get their hand stuck in a fryer and get it burned off or something along those lines. There's a lot of people out there at every level that are stupid and a lot of them that are smart. And really you got to measure them less so off of what they have as merits like money and degrees and more off of whether they actually are intelligent or not. Because I think a lot of people can say this. Matthew and me only have bachelor degrees, but you probably would be pretty hard-pressed at this point to find some people in politics that have doctorates that would be able to go toe-to-toe with us in a debate. Like, that's not trying to gas us up, but that's saying how low the bar is for some people who are even in the government and Congress and elsewhere. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to none other than Ride for Life, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, good sir. That is Charge E for that support. And he said just a couple of number 2s for your boys. And he puts in the In-N-Out Island Tree and the burger.
Hey, and thank you for the support, and thank you for the number 2. We will have to get one. We haven't gone to Crown Burger yet, but we're eventually going to get to one. We're going to get to one eventually. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. So a huge thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here, also, by the way, Esteban Graves said, what profit a man if he gained the world and lose his soul? Well, it results in people saying, I don't think I'm heaven bound. That's what it results in, is stuff like that. Sometimes they know it and sometimes they don't. But jumping into our next one here, this one goes to Truck and Chef, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Truck and Chef, for that. I think the second or third support of the night. We do appreciate that very much. And thank you very much once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thanks to y'all. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but we are always massively appreciative of the support because y'all are helping us to say a lot of comments live on air every night. So a big thanks to you once again. And before we move on, I do have to quote Albert Einstein. According to Diane Merriam said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. That's a quote from Albert Einstein. And I'd have to completely agree with you, Diane Merriam. I mean, Einstein knew a great deal about the internet. He was a true visionary. And I would have to definitely agree with you that his quote is correct. You shouldn't believe everything you read on the internet. And so with that, a lot of people are going to pick up on the joke there. I'm playing into it, folks. Einstein wasn't alive when the internet was around. He died long before then. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, folks, would y'all be interested to know that we actually have millionaires and I believe maybe, this is a big maybe one billionaire that actually has watched the channel before, believe it or not. We've actually had a few of those people in here. They go under pseudonyms, and obviously we keep all that stuff behind, the pseudonym because we're not trying to dox anybody or anything like that. But we do actually have people that watch that have actually been executive of companies and things like that, which is interesting to know occasionally when they finally say it, like over email or something like that. It's always fascinating to hear about, but we always keep that stuff in close confidence. We don't ever say anything like that because obviously we're not trying to, out somebody or something like that. So if somebody tells us that, we're keeping it quiet. Also, by the way, yeah, I saw somebody else say that too in the live chat there. Very interesting. But moving on to our next super chat here. This one goes to none other than Detroit Adam, who puts in a 20. And Detroit Adam said, hello, Enforcers. Amen and thank you for being my family's favorite show and your knowledge and know-how. And sorry if I don't make it tonight. And I'll watch in the R or the AM and recovering from a double hernia surgery. And also, by the way, I'm sorry about that. And he said, hi, Laney Danger and LTLSA.
And I gotta say, good to hear from you, Detroit Adam. I hope you're doing well with the double hernia recovery there. That's quite a surgery to undergo. But beyond that, I gotta say, big thanks to you for giving us some kind words about being the main source of news and entertainment for your family. I hope that we do very well on that, and I hope we did well on that tonight. And I got to thank you so much for being an old guard and a channel legend. I hope things are going well. And I hope that when you're watching this here in the next day or two, whenever you get to it, that you enjoyed the show. And then also, we once again let you know that we greatly appreciate you being here for years and helping this channel to keep on running, even in the midst of you recovering from a double hernia. I've never had a hernia. I don't know how bad those hurt, but I would assume it's pretty damn bad, especially you have two of them. But with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to none other than, guess who? It's going to Inquisitor Holt, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Inquisitor. They said, wise words. The U.S. is supposed to be a bastion of freedom.
And I think you're a support, and we are supposed to be. Some people, they don't get that. Some people say stuff on foreign policy, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. That's actually most people, really. And I don't mean that to like disrespect a lot of people, but a lot of people will say stuff and it's not really founded in any sort of business-minded reality on how foreign policy works. They just say stuff like, Europe isn't our problem. It's like, why is that? Well, it's across the ocean. It's like, yeah, you can fly to Britain in about 8 hours. It's like, it's not that far away, really. Like, it's like, and people don't think about that kind of stuff. It's like, they're 8 hours away, and also this isn't the 1800s anymore. It's not like they're going to sail over on ye old sailboat and blast you with a blunderbuss. They can fire a missile all the way from Russia, and it can reach here. Or they can have a submarine start firing missiles in the United States. They're pretty much here. It's right here on our doorstep. And also on top of that, for the people who say that the Europeans are not our problem, if you go and look at foreign trade of the United States, and you go and look at our top trading partners, let me go, trading partners, let's see. The European Union makes up a collective $1 trillion trade with us annually. Why in the world wouldn't that be our problem? If we're talking about bringing wealth to America, and making America wealthy again, and yada, 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 wouldn't we really care about protecting where our money is coming from? Because of our business with the Europeans. You know, like our business and money making, it doesn't just happen down the street of your Walmart when you give $20 to Walmart and then they pay an employee $15 an hour. That's not the only place that money comes from. Money also comes from stuff like the European Union, like getting a whole bunch of BMWs imported on a ship from Germany and then selling them at a car dealership in America for a profit. That makes us money. So why in the world would we not care about that? Especially considering that that's our biggest cash cow. Like that's where people completely lose me on those arguments. Because it's like, if we really do care about making money in this country, and we really care about raising up the gross domestic product, and not only that, raising up the quality of life for people in this country, wouldn't we care about the money that's coming in that allows for people to have a better quality of life and allows for the country to have more money flowing through it? The answer is yes. That would be a logical conclusion. And then the non-logical conclusion that's reached by these people is that no, we should actually get rid of all of this money that we make from everyone else in the world by trade, and we ought to just hold up here in America and pretty much go broke, like everyone else did who went with that stupid philosophy, like the fascist Spanish. They did that. If you look at the history books, didn't turn out too good for them. So that's my 2 cents on it. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, someone said something. Well, let's see here. Let's see. Someone said F Europe. Man, I got to be honest with you. How the
Man,
hell?
don't give those airtime, man. You're feeding bots.
I mean, honestly, man. But like people really do think that, though. I hear people that I know actually say it, and it's like, how in the world can people really think that? You know, like they think that. Here's the truth, folks. They think that because they work at like a normal job, like, you know, at Walmart or something. So their economic interactions exist with getting a paycheck from Walmart and going to work and clocking in and clocking out. So they don't look at the big picture beyond them, where all that money comes from for people to have a job, to make their own money, to come spend at Walmart, for them to have a job. That's outside of the scope. A lot of people don't think that far. And that's why they can say stuff like F Europe instead of thinking, damn, that's $1 trillion of collective trade we could lose. That's $1 trillion that isn't flowing in and out of American hands where we're making money to buy stuff. And that's where the disconnect comes from. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Chef Danny B yet again, and he throws in a $25 support this time. And thank you very much, good sir, Chef Danny B, once again for that support. He said, my best friend Benny only went to the 7th grade, and now he's a master mechanic and makes more than I do with my culinary degree. Honestly, Danny, I would say if I had kids today, which I don't, if I had kids though, I would tell them, forget college, because you're not going to really go anywhere far with college unless you plan on going to medical school or law school. I would say find a trade to get into, because having a trade will generally, from what I've seen, produce a larger return from the training you're getting. And also generally, you don't have to go into that stupid corporate rat race on the contrary. So I would say it's a better way to go. Like if the kids are fine with it, I would say definitely go to the skilled trades. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that generally it really kind of depends, because some college degrees are worth the money, others aren't. I would honestly tell y'all a history degree really isn't worth the money. I mean, if your kid's going to college, maybe encourage them to go get something other than a history degree. I mean, it was a fluke that we started doing this. A history degree really did help out with that. But at the same time, that's not really good for, you know, marketing yourselves to a lot of jobs out there, really. So you know, maybe I would tell them to get involved in a trade, but also at the same time, the people who are involved in the trade say that they don't want their kids to be involved in the trades, because it's not easy work. I mean, it makes good money, but it's also back-breaking work, too. You know, you're in, like, hot crawl spaces in the middle of the summer working on an HVAC. You know, it's not really pleasant, exactly.
Yeah, but the objective is, though, your kids don't necessarily have to like work for somebody their whole life. They can work, for example, for like, let's say it's HVAC or something. They can work for an HVAC contractor to start with, and then they can eventually branch out and start their own company and then build it up from the ground up. That's very possible, because there's a shortage of those skilled workers these days. So they can simply work for themselves eventually, and then hire people, and then they can do the same thing, and it sort of like, you know, repeats.
Yeah, that's that could be something they do, but you know, some people might just end up having to work for the man in a trade job, and then that, you know, that takes a toll on your body pretty quick from what I've heard. A lot of the people in the trade start complaining that their knees are giving out in their 40s. So, you know, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, there's a trade-off to all of it. But still, you know, I would say to my kids, you know, a college degree isn't everything. Like, you can really get in any job and make it if you really care about it and it's something that actually makes money. That's what I tell them. I wouldn't tell them that college is the only way to succeed and make money, because that's just a complete lie, really. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best that we can, at least in my opinion. And also, let's see here. Someone said, let's see, teaching history wouldn't be so bad. Yeah, but it doesn't really make a lot of money. Like, unfortunately, a lot of the people who end up being history professors in college, when I went to college, they were complaining that they were getting paid like the amount that a manager at a Dollar General would get paid to be a history professor, because for some reason they just don't pay out a lot to the history professors. I didn't really get an answer as to why, but a lot of them were complaining about the pay, and that it was pretty much impossible to support a family, or anyone else for that matter, on that kind of income. But I hope that gives my 2 cents on it from what I know.
Everybody wants to be a YouTuber too. Like all the people that say, especially kids that say, "Oh, I want to be a YouTuber." And most of those people saying that have no idea how much work goes into being a YouTuber for a successful channel. Like, anybody can get a YouTube account. Like, that's easy. Like, all you have to do is literally sign up for it. But to have a successful YouTube channel, you have to treat that like a 70 plus hour a week job. Like, it's you're working more than if you're working for somebody in most cases, being a YouTuber. And most people can't keep that up. And that's why most YouTube channels fail, because people just don't want to put the work in. Luckily for us, it's both of us doing it, so we get to put, sort of divide the hours between the two of us and sort of split the workload a bit, which makes it a bit easier. But for most other people, they have no idea. They think, oh, a YouTuber, that they've got it easy or something like that. It's like, not really. It's like you got to be like really dedicated to it to make it actually work, and that's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. YouTube is, like, a lot of people imagine that it's kind of like sipping pina coladas on the beach. I think you get to look over to someone and go, "Oh, my job? I do YouTube, and I basically do it like a side job." It's not like that at all. YouTube is grueling hours, like insanely long hours all the time. You never get to really walk away from it, which is tough. It is so tough, because I'll be honest with y'all, folks. I would like to be able to know that we kind of had like a normal job to where we had paid leave or something like that. We don't get that. If we're not running a show, we're not making money. There's no paid leave. There's none of that. There's no retirement plan. There's nothing along those lines. So if we are on air and people are throwing in super chats, we're making money. And hopefully we're making enough money that we can put a little bit of it into savings. If we're not on air, we're basically out of business. And that is a really rough kind of a cycle to live in. And on top of that, it's also seasonal. Usually the winter months, and this has been the case this year too, are low periods, income-wise, and also viewership-wise and everything else. So every single year, we go through like this little phase in the winter of like, oh shit, is the YouTube channel like dying? Like, is it starting to wind down? And we've done that every single year, and it never gets old. Like, you never just go, oh, it's the ebb and flow, because whenever you start watching, all of the numbers start dropping every year, and then they'll rise in the spring and summer again. But every time you watch that, you always go, oh God, is this it? Is it over? Like, we're going to have to probably start looking at getting like normal jobs, and it's like impossible to get a normal job these days. So that's kind of like YouTube comes with a lot of stresses. And crazily enough, Matthew was actually watching a while ago a documentary on the behind the scenes of Top Gear with the trio, Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond. And funnily enough, they had the same fears that we have of like, what if our show gets taken off air? What if it's canceled? What if the ratings aren't good? What if it just becomes unviable? Those sorts of fears exist every day. Sometimes they get bad enough that you can just not sleep because the stress is that bad. That's happening from time to time.
It's weird. It's weird that because people call it show business. I call it more. You can call it media, show business, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. Journalism's one form of it. Then you have entertainment. Like, for example, Top Gear was entertainment, sort of like a journalist value, a little bit on the side. But it's always the same thing. Trying to follow what people want as a whole, that can drive you mad after a while. Like, if you're not careful, like, you can get driven mad trying to figure out what people like, because you'll learn over time that you can't please everybody. You have to please. So you just sort of please the majority, and at the same time, you can't bend too much even to the majority, because then you take away your individuality, and then you're not unique anymore. So that's something that all people that are on television, on media, or even on YouTube like we are, you have to constantly try to balance that out, because it'll stress you out to the ends of the earth trying to think about that. So that's a big one. Like, many people don't even see that, the stress that comes with it. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a huge amount. And also on top of that, there's other stresses and pressures that nobody thinks about. And we've watched other people react to similar situations that we've been in it, and they cannot handle it at all. Like for example, hate mail. Hate mail is endless. People hate everything. Like that's what you find out in this business. Everyone hates everything. You joke, people hate the jokes. You don't joke, people hate that you're too serious. You try and keep the news light, people hate that you're keeping it light. You do it seriously, people hate you're doing it seriously. People hate everything, and people will let you know, like in the rudest ways possible. It's like people who would say, "Oh, retail is tough." At least it's a person-to-person interaction then, so it's not that rude. But people who deal with you in like the entertainment world, if they write something to you where they're not directly talking to you, they get as rude as they can get. And then also on top of that, there's the endless harassment, death threats, and all that sort of stuff that comes along with the territory that you also have to deal with. And a lot of people can't handle that. A lot of people fold under the pressure. As a matter of fact, I think it was a representative in Congress that just folded under that pressure today, from a whole other category. And we've dealt with pressure like that endlessly, like where our house was being shown in videos that they made, and they were jumping out with guns and coming in and beating us up and threatening to kill us and stealing our money and stuff. Like, stuff like that, and we just deal with it. Honestly, at that point, I just bought more guns. So that was my response to it, just getting ready for whatever might be coming. But, a lot of people can't handle that sort of deal.
And then also on top of it, you don't get any do-overs. Like for example, with live streams on videos, you do get a do-over, so you can kind of edit things out if you don't like it. But for example, sometimes we have bad days. Like sometimes we're not totally on our A game on certain streams. Now these days is not so much often as it sometimes used to be, speaking for myself. But if you say one wrong thing, like let's say a joke or something that doesn't quite go over that well with YouTube or something, that can be the end of the career right there. You could be finished right there if YouTube doesn't like it, and then all of a sudden they say, that violates our terms of service. We're going to just take that off the whole platform. You're finished. You're done at that point. So you really got to also be very cautious about certain things you say, because there's certain things that may or may not violate the terms of service that could get your whole channel taken off the air at any point. And sometimes it's things that seem innocuous, that aren't that bad. You're like, that would get you taken off, and yeah, sometimes it can, depending on what you're saying.
Another thing also with that is that on this job, there is no room for major mistakes. Minor mistakes can be made, and minor mistakes are always fixable. But major mistakes can destroy not only the whole show and the whole channel, it can also destroy your future. Because if you get canceled on social media, and this is kind of like Russian roulette with having this kind of a job. If you mess up on social media, the cancel culture people mobs, which exist on both the left and the right, can come after you extremely. And if you fold and you give up and just walk off, they will make sure that you can never hold a job. They'll find out where you have a job, and they'll harass that employer until they fire you, or something along those lines on top of that. So then at that point, if you screw up really badly on air, and then you get taken off air because of that, the people who hate you now are going to ensure that you can never get a job again. So you might as well be dead at that point. That's a wild sort of thing as well that you don't think about, but it adds a little bit of pressure because every day is kind of like walking a tightrope to a degree. But anyways, enough of that, folks. Enough of that. We still have more super chats to get to. We have 35 to go, as a matter of fact. That's news to me. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, our next one here goes to Keymaster, who puts in a 20, and also Arar983, who also put in a $20 support. But thank you very much, Arar and Keymaster, for once again helping to keep the channel going. And Enforcer, what say you?
Hey, and thanks to both of y'all for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Jeff Thus. And Jeff put in a 20 and said, God help us. And he said, coming from a devout atheist, LOL.
Dang. Well, I'd have to agree. But a big thanks to you so much for your support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to KC7997, who puts in a 20. And they said, silent viewer, and I'm confused. Was it a secret meeting with Putin about the peace plan, or did Putin never see it beforehand?
Apparently he never saw it beforehand. It was just something that Dmitriev was talking to him about, or they were just running interference and static like they normally do because the Russians lie on everything. We're not really sure which one it is, but it could be one or the other. But a big thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Cookie. And excuse me for the voice crack, but Cookie put in a $20. Oh man. But Cookie put in a $20 support and said, I've been crook. I don't think he meant to say crook because Cookie is not a crook, but I am not a crook.
I'm not the
But I think he meant to say I've been sick. I think there maybe was a typo there, but he said I've been sick, feeling better now, boys, and thanks for your understanding in LSA.
And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support. It's good to hear that you're doing better. I hope that you're continuing to be on the mend. So a big thanks to you once again. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Fog37, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Fog, as well. And they said, here's enough to buy you both a coffee of your choice. And go LSA.
Hey, and we will get a coffee of our choice. We're going to get something good. I drink black coffee because it's bitter, and it reminds me of our bitter existence in this world. But beyond that, a big thanks to you so much once again for support. I'm just playing around. I drink black coffee because it's just really easy to make, doesn't require any fuss, doesn't taste the greatest. I mean, you can get something, real frou-frou, and it'll taste a lot better. But, black coffee, it wakes me up, it does the job for me, and it's cheap. But a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Steve T. And Steve puts in a 20. And thank you very much, good sir, as well. He said, the U.S. can do a land exchange with Ukraine, acre for acre, part of Alaska. Then America can give their land to Russia. And most of the previous mineral deal America made is best applied to land they cede to Russia.
Oh, you mean the scam, the mineral deal scam that we did on them a while ago. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. But a big thanks to you once again for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And don't y'all remember that? Don't y'all remember that, folks? When the United States signed that mineral deal with Ukraine and we said that provided them a security guarantee? It doesn't look like it's provided them any security guarantee. So why in the world would Ukraine believe that the U.S. would provide them a security guarantee if they signed that treaty? The 28 deal peace plan they came out with. Why would they believe that? They have no reason to believe us at this point. So, with that, I hope that does address that well. Folks, it's interesting how that whole deal with Ukraine, the mineral deal, kind of like disappeared and no one really talks about it. And also it's still in effect and was basically a scam. It's kind of like it was kind of authored by someone who may or may not have been involved in a lot of dubious sorts of ventures that may have looked like they possibly were scams of some sort, allegedly. But yeah, a little bit interesting on that one. Don't y'all think it was basically like designed like a scam and they got nothing out of it, but they had to give us a whole bunch in return, and then we just completely acted like we didn't do that, and now we're going to pull another scam on them. Really crazy, honestly. It's like scam central, scamaholics around here. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, the heat is getting to the U.S. leadership, it looks like, about the whole Ukraine-Russia thing. It looks like the vice president is now addressing the criticism of the plan. So I think that's proof that the criticism is so widespread that it's starting to cause some second guessing about the whole thing right there. So interesting sign. But moving into our next one here, this one goes to Peter Burrow, who puts in a 20. And Peter said, hello, enforcers. Hello, LSA. And 20 to help the pizza fund. And I never knew Dreamland existed until I heard of the new peace plan. And live chat question, please.
That's actually a pretty good one. And I gotta thank you for the support. Thank you for helping this channel to keep rolling and supporting the pizza fund. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. So a real big thanks to you so much once again. And what do we got for the live chat, Matthew?
And this one goes to Yvonne, who said, as a European, I feel like we're losing a brother from the other side of the pond. At least we still have Canada in the family. Am I wrong?
Oh, don't feel that way. It's just poor leadership at this point. We'll be back around. I can promise you that. America can go down from time to time, but we're never down and out for good. We'll be back around the corner sometime here soon. But never feel like that, because a lot of people in America, like us here on this channel, we are 100% behind the kind of interest that we've been putting forward on this channel. I gotta say, please to our foreign audience, do not judge us here in the United States off of our leadership, because the leadership in this administration and the last has been quite poor. Most Americans are not like that. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I just saw David H. bring up a suggestion. Hell no. Oh, hell no. Like, I already have been hearing that there's I've already been hearing that there's someone who is currently in the executive office right now that is going to be trying to run for president, and then there's that person from the other party that's trying to run for president in the next election. And I just say, can we not do either of those? Can we just pass on those two options and get another two options? Because those are probably the two worst options from both parties you could get. Like, I'm not even being political here. I'm just being fair. I mean, do we really want those two brainless people running against each other? I mean, once again, it's a battle of the witless at that point to who in the world's going to win. We've done that 2 election cycles now, and I think I've had enough. We need to actually have some smart people who are running, not these clowns that are just known popularly because they are clowns. Like, if we wanted the Ringling Brothers Circus to run the country, we shouldn't have bankrupted them. We should have kept them around, given them some government stimulus checks, and then led them around and voted for clowns at that point with how bad off that option is. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Ed, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Ed, for that support. He said, angry Irish Ed here. Oh, angry.
Oh.
And he said, I've always leaned slightly one way because of fiscal infrastructure and world policy. And I don't care about certain other ways of leaning politically. And I guess I'm in the middle. And Enforcer's on point. And never missed a stream in 3 years.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for always being here, Irish Ed. You're an old guard and a channel legend. And I got to say, you know, honestly, folks, back when I was a kid, I leaned hard one way. Matthew did too. And that's because we kind of grew up in an area where that was the thing. But in 2020, I actually ran, and Matthew was my campaign manager. I actually ran for a city council position in my hometown at 18 years old. Ended up winning 21% of the vote, which honestly, looking back at that for an 18-year-old, that was not too bad. I don't even know why in the world I thought I had a chance in winning at 18. But beyond that, we ran the campaign, and we leaned heavily into the political leaning in that area, which the whole city was a part of, and then they screwed us over. And that was my waking up moment, where I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't really matter if you lean left or right. They'll screw you over if they don't find you to be within their own interests. So why in the world root for either side? Because they're not going to root for you. They would run you into the ground and possibly even harm you if they needed to get ahead. So why in the world would I root for either of them like a diehard? That makes no sense. And that was really the moment where I took a step back heavily and when I'm not going to be involved in this sort of a deal here. But I would have to agree with you completely, Irish Ed. I generally fall down the middle. And you know, sometimes one party has a great answer to one thing and the other one has a great answer to another. I look at it more so that way. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bex Chitwood, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Bex, for that support. They said, good show. And I wondered how you guys were going to report on this political relationship drama and still waiting on the Canada invasion.
And thank you so much for the support. And we tried our best, and I hope that it was pretty decent. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Joseph Carr, and thank you, Joseph, as well for the support. He said, I want to know what idiot came up with this BS plan, because Ukraine must be thinking, what the hell?
Yeah, it seems that that's what he's thinking at the moment, like, unfortunately. But a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Robert Krogan. And Robert put in that 10 and said, maybe half chicken, whole chicken, not sure, inflation and all. But welcome all at LSA, and thanks, Enforcers.
And thank you so much for supporting. You know, with inflation these days, that might become a $6.99 chicken here in the future instead of a $5 chicken. It's going to be a sad day when it turns into a $6.99 chicken, folks. I'm going to cry. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And we are on to the next one.
You know, if I was the president personally, the way I would combat inflation of the U.S. dollar is I would simply mandate inflation of the chicken or the product. Like, just simply inflate the product to inflate with the currency inflation. That would solve the crisis. And also moving the 99% into the 1% would fix the financial issues too. But I digress. But anyways, moving into our next one here. This one goes to Tom Exman, who puts in a 10. And Tom said, can you guys maybe on a day stream put a list of congressional officials in each state that we can call and email?
Generally you can just find that on the website of the Congress, actually, and especially for your state. They categorize it by state. So you could find that. Because putting up a list like that, it generally would kill the flow of the show, and a lot of people don't like that. That's usually bad dojo. But a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I was joking. Like, my jokes aren't landing tonight. I'll be honest with you. My jokes are coming across
right,
serious.
Man. It's all right.
Huh? Thank you. Thank you very much. But I'll say this. They shouldn't inject the air into the poultry. Like, I'm just joking, by the way. But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to Mark Eade, who puts in a 50 New Zealand. And thank you very much, Mark, for the second or third support of the night. And Mark said, send it, fellas. New Zealand. Remutica Incline, New Zealand.
Remutaka, rail trail. Is this it? Holy moly, they got boilers. That looks like something out of a horror movie. That's pretty cool, actually. And let's see. Where in the world is this Remutaka rail incline? Let's type in Remutaka incline. Oh, there it was. Oh, I see you know your judo well. Good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp railroad? Oh, look at that. It's a real incline train. Wow. Man, don't you diss on them. Like, man, don't you diss on them. Man, they got high-end rail cars here. Okay, maybe that one's not the best. Maybe that one's not the best one, but still, it is really cool. A really cool little spot right here. And I got to say, a big thanks to you for sharing that and supporting the channel, Mark, and helping this channel to keep it running. We actually have, Matthew, a heritage railway here in Salt Lake City. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Across the mountain in Heber City, which or Heber, I don't know how it's pronounced, but in Heber.
Heber.
Heber, I don't even know her. Hit that thing again. But anyways, this is the heritage. Oh, you had to do me dirty. You had to do me dirty. You had to.
I was desperately trying to get to it. Hold on. There we go.
Dude, you sat there and desperately did me dirty, man. Like, damn, bro.
Listen, the cricket is one button above the button test, so it was literally a smacking the wrong button.
Yeah, dude, that was honestly pretty damn funny. But also, this is the one. The Heber Valley Railroad. It actually has some really cool scenery on this little route. And they also have this Baldwin Morse here. They painted everything up like the old Rio Grande, which is pretty cool. But let me see if I can show you the scenery. That's a bit of the scenery that you can see on this train ride. So pretty cool. Pretty cool, you know? Yeah, look at that. Wow.
I like that.
Man, you were so quiet. I was like, is this mic out or something? I was like, what's going on?
I'm sitting here thinking, man, we got like 40 to go.
We do?
Yeah.
Like, holy smokes, folks. I'm sorry, folks. I hate to say this, folks, but I'm going to have to go into turbo mode tonight. I'm so sorry, everyone. I know many people, they like it greatly. They actually ask for this a lot, but we don't do it a lot. And I know that some other people are like, I can't even understand what you're saying because you're talking too fast. But we're going to have to do it because we have so many super chats left. And we're running overtime here in 3 minutes, and we want to make sure to get to at least a couple of live chats tonight. So, with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Grant Harmon, who puts in a 10. And Grant said, generally, what has been China's reaction to the U.S. actions toward Venezuela?
Hey, and I thank you so much for supporting. We haven't seen really any Chinese reactions so far at the moment. They've been incredibly silent on the matter. So with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Huge thanks to you once again for support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also a big shout out to Joseph Carr for putting in a $10 support. And thank you very much, good sir Joseph, for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And we also have a 10 from Truck and Chef who said, can we pledge our allegations to the flag of the United States of America again?
Pledge our allegiance. Is that what it's supposed to say, Matthew? I think that's what it's supposed to say. But I do thank you so much for support. And we can pledge our allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Long live the republic. And a huge thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Scott Kemp, who puts in a 10. He said, why Venezuela? And thanks for the truth each night. And this is making you heroes.
Thank you so much for the support, and we don't really know. We don't know. They tell us to fight the cartels, which makes no sense. It was kind of more so to curb Chinese influence, but they still won't say that, which is absolutely stupid. I don't understand why they're doing that. But still, I would say that's generally to curb Chinese influence, but the official announcement is to fight the cartel. And so a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel keep it running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Diane Merriam, who puts in a 10. And Diane said, I usually just do donations, but tonight has been excellent. And take one from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And we love to know that you donate to the fundraisers. It's just an incredibly wonderful thing to know that so many people continue to help out Ukraine and Western American interests around the world. And we thank you massively for being a part of that and also supporting the channel tonight to help us keep this thing rolling. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And the live chat question goes to Bobo, who said, do you think the Europeans will pick up where the United States left off?
I would hope so. That's generally what we're believing at the point. The Europeans do have a massive gross domestic product collectively, and they also have significant military budgets and military outputs at this point. So they could support the Ukrainians well into the future on their own, and I would hope that they can. And so a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I also saw someone say that the enforcer is almost sounding like he's aspirated. I'm sorry, what is it? They said, let's see, enforcer no longer naturally aspirated, turbo spooling. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Waka Waka, who puts in a 10. He said, as always, thanks for bringing us the news and the great commentary. LLT, LSA, and Slava Ukraine.
And long live the Lead Spring Army, Slava Ukraine, Slava. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Business force like you, make this thing possible, and I'll just keep it rolling. So big thanks to you once again, and with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from John Garner. And thank you very much, John, as well, for that support. And once again, the second support of the night. And John said, we're here, just because we are. LSA.
We're here because we're here, because we're here, because we're here. And a huge thanks to you for the support and help this channel to keep it running. I thank you massively for the support and, of course, making sure to keep the Enforcer channel rolling because you allow us to say, long live the Lead Spring Army, and the Lead Spring Army will never die. And so a huge thanks to you once again. We're on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Ari Sowini, Kiwi Wife, and Finn, who put in a 10. And Ari said, love your integrity and standing up to the bullies and LSA.
And thank you so much for support, and we always try and have integrity here on this channel. We are upstart people, upstanding citizens, I believe, I'd hope at least. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Toxicocide, who said, keep up the good work, and you give me hope for the United States.
And thank you so much for the support, and I hope that we give hope to the entirety of the Republic, all citizens everywhere within this country. And so a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sligoy the Sauce yet again, who puts in a 10. And Sligoy said, having retired at 36, I can tell you that rich people aren't mean or unhappy. It's mostly because we can't trust people anymore. And if you know, you know. Honestly, that's a decent point, Sligoy. That's a decent point right there. That might actually be part of the reason. Also, by the way, I'm not generalizing all wealthy people, by the way. It's just like sort of like a common theme I've noticed, but not everybody's like that. Like there's always exceptions to every group. But thank you very much, Sligoy the Sauce. And Enforcer, what say you?
I thank you for the support, Sligo the Sauce. And I would have to generally agree with you. That's also something else as well, as you can't really trust people because a lot of people will use you if you're rich. But then also a lot of people don't, you know, it's a sort of a thing. Honestly, it's just sort of a sadness that society has inflicted upon itself. But a huge thanks to you so much for giving support and helping this channel to keep it running. And of course, I don't want to sound like I'm making generalizations about folks, but it's hard to not make generalizations when we're talking about such a broad and in-depth topic as that. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Drops Trades LLC, who puts in a 10. He said, a poor man is in debt. A rich man has no debt and cash. Common sense ain't so common.
Oh, shots fired there. Oh, whoa. Easy, buddy. Easy, buddy. Oh, we're not trying to, you know, run in a mayoral election here. We're not Cuomo's over on or that other guy, you know, back in 1992 while shot in the back of a cab by the Gambinos and the Zambanis or whoever the hell they were. But beyond that, I had to thank you for the support, and, you know, that's true, but rich people got a whole bunch of other problems, like their family ostracized because they won't give them money consistently. You know, that's something that some people who have a hard time paying the bills, they don't necessarily have those problems, hopefully. But it's still a big thanks to you once again for support and helping the channel to keep it running. I got to tell you, dropping those trades, interesting. But a big thanks to you once again for support and helping the channel to keep it running. We're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Peter Burrow, who puts in a 10. And Peter said, I was in America in the early 80s, and Ronald Reagan was president, and breakdancing was on the go. Hugh Lewis and Van Halen were going hard. But the people in the U.S. were brilliant, friendly, and Flash won.
And they're still like that today. They're still like that today without the breakdancing and the Van Halen and all that. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have an 8 from Margaret Hemsley. And Margaret said, it's my birthday. And also, happy birthday to you, Margaret Hemsley. And I hope you've had a good one. And I said, here's a present for you. Take a live chat question.
Thank you so much for support and helping this channel to keep it running. Thank you for the present. We will make sure to get a live chat question in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And Margaret Hemsley's live chat question goes to, let's see here, Dalton. He said, do you guys think that Ukraine will accept this peace plan? And great coverage.
I would hope not. I would generally say that they shouldn't, and they won't, but I would hope not. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that live chat incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Just a Plumber once again, who puts in the 5 and said, by the way, Enforcer Matt, if you have forced air heating and or cooling, look into installing a humidifier on the air handler for the whole home. And I might have to do that, possibly just a plumber. I might have to do that, but I maybe not though, because now that I've thought about it, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that, so I'll have to see. But thank you very much for the advice. And we also have a 5 from the Wisdom to Know. He said, "You break down military situations without getting political. It's fantastic and gives incredible, clear perspectives." LSA.
And I thank you so much for supporting helping this channel to keep it running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. And also, I got to say, Timothy said something in the chat, man. I'm going to have to take a minute to address this one. I am the very modern Major General. I have information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England. I know them fights historical from Marathon, Mount Waterloo, and order categorical. I'm very well acquainted to what matters in mathematical. I understand equations, both simple and quadratical, and about binomial theory, I'm teaming with a lot of news, with many cheerful facts about the square of the hypotenuse, and I could do the rest of it. I'm kind of stuttering through there a little bit, but that's a famous song, Matthew. I don't know if you know it, but it's the modern Major General song from the Pirates of Penzance.
Hebrew?
Uh-huh.
Is that Hebrew?
No, it's English. it's a Gilbert and Sullivan thing. Oh, I'm trying to laugh like Tucker Carlson there, but with that, I hope that it's addressed the best I can. With that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Laser314, who puts in a 5 and said Neville Chamberlain's going to be replaced as the author of the worst peace negotiations in history.
I think they're actually battling for that. It's crazy. They were all going for Nobel Peace Prize, and they didn't get one. Oh man, it's hilarious, honestly. I think that's what it is, Matthew. I think that's what it is. They might be trying to resolve this whole thing and get the peace forced through this year, so that way they can be a nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize when it's being selected for 2025 next year. That might actually be the reason, and that would be so stupid if it was. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kachula 343 yet again, who puts in a 5. And they said Russia is almost dead, as is between domestic production in Ukraine and European aid. The only person here who doesn't hold any cards is the president. And also Kachulian said, "I've also known since the start we'd eventually abandon Ukraine in the United States, and the presidency's been turned into a business, and it's buttering the Russian side."
And I got to thank you for support. And I would generally agree with most of those statements, save for one or two. But a huge thanks to you so much once again and helping this channel to keep it running. With that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Chris Superfun. And he said, "I disagree with some of the things you say, but this so-called peace deal is utter bullshit."
Hey, well, at least we can agree on that. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. With that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Miles Thomas, who puts in a 5 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Miles, for that support, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And we also have a 5 from Destroyer of Planets, who said, "It feels like Russia is so close to collapsing and the war would end, but I worry we would bail them out to prevent it."
Oh, I'd hope not. But you never know these days. You might just exchange 100 billion rubles for 100 billion US dollars. You never know. Heavens. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel keep it running. With that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Siri, who puts in a 5. And Siri said, "Excellent work, Enforcer Bros, and disregard the idiots. And check out the Ice Block Expedition of 1959. And I suggest Mo Irana to Libreville 2026. And what could possibly go wrong? EXO from Oslo."
And an EXO to Oslo to you as well. And I thank you so much for the support, Siri. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll have time to be able to get into those very interesting rabbit holes tonight, unfortunately. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address it well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Honey Badger of Chaos. And thank you very much, good sir, as well for that support. He said, "My dad always said that 50% of all doctors graduated in the bottom half of their class."
That's absolutely true, as a matter of fact. And that's actually really the thing you think about, because that's the same thing you do in law school. That's hilarious, honestly. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support. And it's kind of scary, too, because some of those people might be doing your surgery or filing your legal work. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and how about the channel to keep on running. But if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And you know something that's crazy, folks? The faster I talk, the faster and faster I can talk, because I get warmed up to it and I can do it. But a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Waka Waka once again, who puts in a 5. He said, "Given today's events, is there any time to discuss the A-10 Warthog? Blessings."
Oh, heavens. Absolutely not. I do thank you massively for the support there and help this channel to keep it running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Crispy, Mark Dixon, and Plazoth, who each put in a $5 support. And thank you very much to Crispy, Mark, and Plazoth for helping to keep the channel going. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thanks to all of y'all for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but we're still massively appreciative because each and every one of y'all are helping to make this channel possible and helping us to keep this thing rolling every single day. So that way we can say long live the Least Spring Army, and the Least Spring Army will never die. So a huge thanks to you once again. And of course, Northerner, Turbo Talk. Turbo Talk is the business here on the Enforcer channel. When it starts to go over time, the Enforcer has to Turbo Talk. And so a big thanks to all y'all once again for listening to the Turbo Talk. I hope y'all are able to understand this somewhat well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one here goes to Julian 343, who puts in a 2 as well. And thank you very much, Julian, for that support. They said one more thing y'all better remember in the chat is to bring it on. Bring it on, son.
Oh, bring it on indeed. And a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel keep running because, damn, son, where'd you find this? And a huge thanks to you so much once again. With that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Taco, who puts in a 2. And thank you very much, Taco, for that $2 support and also helping to keep it running. They said, I drank my morning coffee out of my LSA mug and LLT LSA.
Hey, I love to hear it. I was actually drinking coffee out of my LSA mug today as well, so we were on the same page. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel keep it running. With that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Sligoy the Sauce yet again, who put in a 2 and said, it's Sligo the Sauce, by the way, LOL. And also, sorry about that, Sligo the Sauce. I thought it was Sligoy the Sauce, but apparently it's Sligo the Sauce, by the way. And I will have to remember that right there. And also, thank you very much. He's got that sauce. He's got the sauce. He's not lost in the sauce. But Enforcer, tell us more.
Oh, heavens. He has the sauce. Sligo, the sauce. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel keep it running. Are you named after the town of Sligo in Ireland? Is that what you're named after? Because I know that town right here. Right here. Are you named after this town in Ireland? I want to know. Answer me, damn it. And so a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel keep on running. But we will make that name correction. We'll make sure to pronounce it properly from here forward. Otherwise, the enforcers will be beaten with bamboo sticks. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a support from Crispy9775, who put in a $10 support as well. And thank you very much, Crispy, for that $10 support. And we do appreciate that super chat right there. It says thank you, and it has the YouTube paracreature sitting there doing a little bit of a bow, and it's wearing a little bit of a headband right there. It's got the color red on. No telling what he's up to, but he's got a little bit. He's got. Thank you very much for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
We have a suspect male, light blue, running down the street. He's wearing a red headband, believed to be gang paraphernalia. He's turning on to O Block. We need an officer down there immediately. We actually need all cars in the city to go to immediately down there to go apprehend the pair or do something else. We don't really know, but turn off your body cams. But beyond that, a huge thanks to you so much for the support. Crispy, and as the Colonel said, Colonel Sanders of KFC, extra crispy. And I gotta thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing rolling. And so humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And a partridge in a pear tree. Get the references of partridge in that super chat. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a $1 support from 2 Days Gone. And thank you very much, 2 Days Gone, for that $1 support right there. And once again, we do appreciate it very much. And of course, we appreciate the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And every dollar counts. And a massive thanks to you so much for the support. And also, there was a $6.99 super chat from Drop Trades LLC. He said, here's a Costco chicken from Uncle Scrooge. LOL. That's hilarious, honestly. I love a Costco chicken. And Uncle Scrooge, it's seasonally appropriate. It's almost Christmas, but Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet. And so it's still Turkey Day until Thanksgiving happens. And then Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas You will play nonstop through the end of November and also the entirety of December and also a little bit of January for some reason. I don't know why that's going on anymore. I don't know why that song is dominating the soundtracks everywhere, but it's got to stop, because All I Want for Christmas is less of that song. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support. I hope that does address it incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
You know, somebody who knew how to stack it up better than anybody else was Scrooge McDuck. Like, I don't know if y'all seen that guy, but he knew how to stack it up. He literally had like a swimming pool, and he filled it up with all the money, and then he flexed it on those kids, those little ducks that he brought over and stuff like that. He would tell them, "Oh, see, this is just petty cash, and they would literally be flexing on the children. Like, he was really depraved. He was bringing in like high schoolers and stuff, and sitting there showing them the like whole swimming pool of cash that he had and stuff like that. It's terrible.
Honestly, it was deep. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is actually our Morse code decoders of the night. And tonight we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Johnny Dog, Norm Pritchett, as well as Arable Garbo, Horrella Fluffiness, Kush, Kilberterix, Sire, and Brian Blairstown. They said, Morse code makes me saddened to see such destitute actions being made by the leadership of the Republic and LSA.
And that's the sound of money. I'll get the done on nail. I got to congratulate the Civil Corps for getting that correct time and time again. Y'all are truly amazing at how y'all are able to get that Morse code deciphering done every single day, and probably how you're able to listen to me right now, because I'm talking a million miles an hour. Oh, and there's no caffeine. I ran out of caffeine. I'm just doing this so that way we can try and power through this thing and run this thing on out for the night at a reasonable time. But a humongous thanks to all of y'all so much once again, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to cover this news, and we also wouldn't be able to hear the Morse code message every single night. And so with that, folks, due to time constraints, because we are at 11:43 right now, I'm now able to actually slow down my speaking, at least here reasonably for a moment, and we are now able to start moving ourselves on into the live chats. Unfortunately, folks, due to us being a significant amount over time, about 13 minutes, we will only be able to take 3 live chat questions, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream for the night. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Vibin Waves. He said, possible, this is just him concerned about a real full Russian collapse hurting the U.S. and world economy. And I personally say, good, let him fall, but it could wreck the markets for a bit.
Honestly, it couldn't. I mean, Russia hardly has a connection to anyone's market globally. at all. And on top of that, we don't even buy their oil. So there's no way for us to be hurt if the Russians collapsed at all. It'd be like the Soviet Union collapsing. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it didn't do anything to us. It did a lot to them, though. So that would be my honest opinion on that. I don't really think the Russian Federation collapsing could economically destroy anyone or even really harm the markets. And on top of that, it's a minor country in size economically. So I would doubt that the damage would be even minor, honestly. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And also, a massive shout out to Crispy9775 once more for throwing in a 10. We're massively appreciative of that, and you help us to keep this channel running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, so this one goes to Storm of Sound, who said, how many hours a day do you spend researching everything for the show?
A good bit. Depends, though, on the day. Usually on most days, it's about 2 hours or 2.5 hours before the show. Really, honestly, 3. Because the first hour out of those 3 prep hours before the show usually is me sitting on Twitter, combing through everything and seeing what's good and what's not, and kind of getting an idea of what generally we're working with. And then the next 2 hours is me putting it all together on the map and then working on the thumbnail and everything else and thinking about it all and how I'm going to present it. So generally it takes about 3 hours before the show, and then we're on the show for another 3.5 hours, and then we have like a little bit of post-show stuff that we do, or at least I do every night, looking over the analytics and all that stuff and trying to figure out what it was doing and if we need to change anything or what people are really interested on, if we can get that info that quick. And so generally it's about 7.5 to 8 hours a day most of the times to run the show. So that's about all the prep time and all the time involved in just running a show every day. And then when we make a short war video, or I make a short war video, just speaking about the amount of time I'm throwing in, that can add easily another 2 or 3 hours into a day to make a short war video. So sometimes it's like 9 to 11 hour days, generally, depending on what there is to do. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who said, do you think that this peace plan from the U.S. will finally get Europe to realize that they must defend themselves because America's current government is not a reliable ally?
I think they started to realize that earlier this year, and I think they're really realizing that right now. And so I would definitely agree with you on that. And so I hope that does address that the best that we can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is CC Tech, who said, doesn't the declaration of Maduro's narco-terrorist group being officially declared on Monday, won't that mean that we won't attack until then, Monday? And I think the U.S. wants to decapitate the regime.
It's possible. It's possible that we could wait till Monday. It's just a little bit uncertain at the moment. I don't even know if we're even going to strike him at all, because we could just back off completely, which would be stupid at this point. But we could do that, because if we've learned anything over this last year in foreign policy, the worst decision is usually the decision they make. So with that, I hope that does address that the best that I can. And with that, folks, it's time for us to round out this stream for tonight. All jokes aside, we have to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had so many of y'all here tonight, once again, listening to this channel as your primary source of news. We hope to see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. It's a really crazy thing to know that so many people continue to choose this news, this channel as their primary source of news, and we are still greatly appreciative of that, all the way up 1,367 days after it started. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow. And if there is enough news to make, I, the Enforcer, will be the one putting out the short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Ram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow on the stream at 10 p.m. Eastern and on the midday short war video as well if there is enough news to cover. And we will see what happens tomorrow. Every single day is a new day that brings something interesting, to say the least. Today was no exception, unfortunately, on the negative side today, but maybe tomorrow will be a little bit different. You never know how quick things change up these days. It seems like it goes on a roller coaster, it seems like. So with that, we will see you all then. And in the meantime, Slava Ukraine, Heroically, get some rest, and good night.